kitchen. So many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.
Welcome to So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. My name is Dhal Barman in Durham, North Carolina. The Cooks in the Kitchen are all Food for Life instructors. Food for Life is a nutrition education program of the Physicians Committee, and we love sharing whole food, plant-based, vegan dishes. Today, our show is called So Many Green Foods, and there's 13 of us today. We're going to be demonstrating soups, cabbage and broccoli dishes, stuffed peppers, zucchini noodles, and more. I'll be working with asparagus. I wanted to pause before the program and share a personal reflection. We've all been hearing some terrible news, and it's not just recently, it seems like it's been going on for some time, about war and destruction. I personally wanted to share how privileged I feel to be able to live in a peaceful environment, and I know there are people who don't. I hope that in some small way, our foods and presentations may help to build peace. So let's get into asparagus. And in the interest of time, I'm actually going to start cooking. I'll talk about my cast iron pan. I cook with no oil. Why no oil? Because oil doesn't really contribute any nutrition. With cast iron, we should have a show just about cookware, but with cast iron, you want to be careful not to touch the pan because it gets very hot quickly. But I'm going to go ahead and start sauteing some onions, and all the recipes are available. So there goes some onions. And also, I'm going to use garlic. I also have some shallots. I don't know if you're familiar with shallots. I love shallots. They're kind of a cross between onions and garlic. So let me get a spatula. I'm going to put the garlic and shallots in. And I didn't take a lot of time to carefully chop things very small because I'm going to be blending this. Okay? And my pan is on a medium high. And so there goes some onions and garlic. I'm going to go ahead and prepare some asparagus. I love asparagus. Asparagus is a tasty food. Asparagus is a good source of vitamins A and K and folate and a number of micronutrients like iron and zinc. Also antioxidants, including ones that are anti-inflammatory and that lower your blood pressure. If you buy asparagus, what you want to do is you want to find asparagus that looks nice and uniformly colored, and the stalk, the tops will have some purple. You can buy purple and white asparagus as well. But of course, the typical asparagus is green. In my local market, they said purple asparagus and white asparagus really only comes in the spring. But here's asparagus. And what I do when I get home with my asparagus is I wash it, and then I put it in a container with water. Now, if you want, you can also put a plastic wrap on top to keep it moist. I don't usually do that. And it keeps fine for 4 to 6, 7 days, so almost a week. Okay, so that's the asparagus. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just roughly chop my asparagus. So there's pluses and minuses with chopping when you're sauteing. If this were a stew or if it were some sort of a main course all by itself, if I weren't blending, then I might choose a finer chop because I'll get more surface area that's cooking. Now, to be honest, with the soup I'm making, and I am making an asparagus soup, it's going to taste good even if you don't bother sauteing the asparagus. The sauteing does bring a little bit more flavor out. Okay? The other thing in chopping for asparagus is you want to make sure that the tops are nice and tight. Okay? Now, just as a rule of thumb, if you're following a recipe and it calls for a pound of asparagus, that's usually about 12 to 15 spears, and the spears are usually 9 to 10 inches, about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. My preference is thinner pieces of asparagus. They have more flavor. Okay? So I'm doing a rough chop, and I started talking about the disadvantages and advantages of how you chop it. If you chop it fine, you'll get a little bit more flavor when you cook it. But I'm going to be blending this, and especially for the show where I want things to move fast, I'm soon going to be scooping this into my blender. And if I have lots of small pieces, it will take longer. It'll be just fine with the big pieces. Okay? So again, if you're doing something where you're going to eat the asparagus, maybe with some rice on the side, maybe with some tofu, then you may want to chop the asparagus a little bit smaller. While I'm cooking the asparagus, I wanted to talk about other things you can do with asparagus. And by the way, you might be wondering why anybody who's been watching our shows for any time knows that I'm a triple cross tangerine fiend, and it's in season, and I have to use it in today's show. Okay, so there goes my asparagus. I like asparagus raw sometimes, but I usually like to cook it. Now, here's something I like to do when asparagus is new in season and I just haven't had it for a while, is I will saute, the whole spear. I won't chop it. And then what I'll do, so I'll take the whole spear, I'll just cut the ends off, the rough ends. I'll saute it, and then I'll cook it for a little longer than I'm going to cook today, for maybe 5, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, until you see a little bit of browning. And then I'll put it in a plate, and I'll put a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of salt, and black pepper, and that's it. It's so good. It's really, really good. Okay, so while this is cooking, let's see if there's any other interesting ingredients I should talk about. We'll be using some broth today. So I purchased some broth. It's vegetable broth. When you buy broth, look for something that's low sodium, and this does say vegetable broth. You want to read the ingredients and make sure it's vegan. Everything we do is vegan. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a prepared broth. Also, this recipe, and you can see there's some caramelization going on with the onion already. Okay, so that's nice, and I know some good flavors are coming out. And I'm going to actually proceed, because I think I've gotten a little bit of cooking underway. So if I were home and I weren't trying to rush, then I would let it cook for maybe another minute or two. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my blender. Now, this recipe does need a blender, but you don't need a high-powered blender. I have a Vitamix, which is an expensive blender, and you don't need the Vitamix. And what I'm going to put in the blender is I'm going to put a Yukon Gold potato. And you might ask, why is it a little bit purple? And that's because I cooked this. So Yukon Gold, one thing you can do is you can take the broth, you can bring it to a boil, and cook chopped potato, chop it into maybe 1-inch pieces for 5, 6 minutes, something like that. 8 minutes until the potato is done. But what I did is I pressure cooked. This pressure cooked, I guess if we boil it, it'll take longer than that, but I pressure cooked this for 5 minutes. That's what I was thinking. This was a 5-minute pressure cooked deal, so I'm going to put the potatoes in. The potatoes will add some thickening to the soup. So there goes the potatoes. And then I'm going to add some plant milk. What? I'm going to wait on the plant milk. I'm going to add some beans. Okay, so you can use Great Northern beans, you can use cannellini beans. These are navy beans. You want as white a bean as possible because I want the vibrant green of the asparagus. So you can use anything from a cup to a cup and a half of beans. The more beans you use, the more nutrition. To be honest, as you go much past a cup and a quarter, it starts, I don't know how to describe it, but it starts getting maybe a little too thick. So I think the golden point is, and I dropped a little green in there, so I'm going to discard that. So I would aim for about a cup. I'm going to turn my pan off, and I'm going to go ahead and put my sautéed asparagus, onions, and garlic in the pan. And right after that, I'm going to add some seasoning. I'm going to add the liquids last, because the liquids would kind of grab all the seasonings and start the mixing process. Okay. I'm being careful not to touch the cast iron pan. A beautiful piece of asparagus dropped. And if I were home, I would carefully get a mitt and move the pan, but I'm going to leave that. So there goes the onion, garlic, and asparagus, and it smells really nice. I have to mention that Mother Nature made us so that there are so many nice, healthy, plant-based ingredients, but there are people, myself included, although I can't think of an example right now, for whom they don't like certain ingredients. My daughter, for example, does not like asparagus. She avoids asparagus. And so if you don't like asparagus, you could try this dish and use maybe broccoli instead if you want to stick with the green theme. If you want to stick with a fall theme, you can make minor modifications and make maybe a pumpkin soup and use pumpkin. The pumpkin wouldn't really need sautéing, but the onions and garlic would benefit from sautéing. Again, we should have a show just on cookware. So you might be wondering, well, Dhal, if you're a cast iron pan, there's been a little bit of sticking, but not much. All you have to do is you occasionally season it. I don't use oil in my cooking, but I do use oil for seasoning. And so occasionally what I'll do is I'll put a tablespoon or half a tablespoon of oil, I'll heat the pan, and I'll rub it into the pan, and all this stuff will come out. If things are really cooked on, which happens once in a great while, then I learned a trick of putting some salt and oil, not eating these things, but using them for cleaning. The salt adds abrasion and scrubbing, and then just getting all of the salt off. I don't wash my cast iron pan, and again, I should move on to the recipe, but at some point I'd love to tell you more about cast iron. Okay, so there we go. Be careful about resting spatulas. The metal is fine, but don't put the plastic part on the pan. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to add some seasonings. So I'm going to try some dried chives. Okay, we'll use some dried chives in the garnish too, but here comes some dried chives. Okay, and I have all the ingredients, the measurements for you. Be careful when reaching over a hot pan. I'm going to use some lemon pepper. I love lemon pepper. I also like fresh ground black pepper, which I may use as well. And we need a little bit of salt, which is right here. If you're using some fancy salts like Himalayan pink or maybe a Kala Namak, a black salt, make sure you're getting an iodized salt as well. Let me just check my notes. I think I have everything. We need a little lemon juice. And I have a lemon, but I forgot to cut it, so I'm going to show you another trick. So we have some triple cross. I forgot the lemon. No problem. I'm going to use my hands, and this triple cross is so juicy, I'm simply going to squeeze. Actually, I'm not going to. I'm going to put the whole thing in, and I'll get the juice, and I'll get some more fiber. My hands won't get juicy. So a little bit of lemon juice. I put the salt in, and that's it. Oh, and then the broth, the vegetable broth goes in. I've measured all of this. And then here comes the milk. Use any plant milk, use an unsweetened milk. So I'm using unsweetened almond milk. It's easy to make at home, but I happen to have some. So there goes the milk. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to blend this. Now, if I were home, I would let this run. The Vitamix goes very fast, and it actually heats soups. But I would let it run and make this nice and hot. But in the interest of time, I'm going to actually put this in a pan. And I'll just put a little bit so it heats up quickly. Okay. Of course, you're not here live trying it, so I could just serve it. But let's actually have some hot soup. Okay. So I'm going to quickly heat that up, get my ladle. So at this point, I have a lovely green soup. I'm really happy with the greenness, and with the amount of beans I put in, it's still nice and green. Now, another option you have at this point is instead of using a blender, you can use an immersion blender. So immersion blenders, you actually just put right in all the ingredients and you push a button and it blends right there. But to get it really creamy, using something like a Vitamix, a high-power blender, is a great way to go. Okay, but now it's nice and hot, so I'm going to go ahead and serve. Our last show, So Many Lovely Foods in February, I spent some time in the recipe document talking about how important it is to make our food look pretty, and that's what I'm about to focus on. I'm trying not to get any of the soup on the edges of the bowl. A little bit. Okay, so there's the soup. Let me grab a paper towel. And let me just wipe off the sides a bit. Okay, it's imperfect, but not bad. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to garnish it. So what I brought from home is I brought some homemade yogurt. This is vegan yogurt made from soy. So let's put a little bit of yogurt. This is optional. You can find many vegan yogurts in the marketplace. Maybe I should move the bowl so it's more visible. Is that better? Let's move this around. That's a little more central, so hopefully that's visible. So let's put a little dollop, a dollop of vegan yogurt right there. And then one thing I did, when I cooked my Yukon Gold potatoes, I also cooked some purple sweet potatoes. And when you cook them, they look so beautiful. So we'll get some contrasting color. So I'm simply going to put the purple sweet potato in my green soup. I'm also, to get some contrast, you've got to have some triple cross tangerine. I'm going to put this in here as well. I like asymmetry in my design. I have some microgreens here, so I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of microgreens on top as well, like that. And I'm going to move that little yogurt down. I'm a culinary artist at this point, so might as well put all the yogurt in. Okay. And finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some black pepper, and if you don't like the specks of black pepper, you can use white pepper, but I actually like a little bit of contrast, so let's put a little bit of black pepper in. And finally, the last thing I'll do is I'll put a little bit of chives on the yogurt, mainly, okay, and then a little bit in the green. And there you have it. This is my thick, creamy asparagus soup, no added fat, and it smells great. I think you're going to like this. And the garnishing is up to you, whatever you want to make it look really nice. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this. The recipes are available to you. You're in for a surprise because next I'm excited to introduce Tammy Robertson. You may know she's in Arizona and she has a special guest. Tammy, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dilla. That looks amazing. Hi, I am Tammy Robertson. I'm a registered nurse and one of the cooks in the kitchen. And I am here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I have a surprise guest this week. Joining me all the way from Omaha, Nebraska is my fellow Food for Life instructor and nurse as well, Cody Stubbe. Come on in, Cody.
Tammy,
So happy you can join me here in the kitchen this week.
Oh, thank you so much for having me and hosting me. It's been such a
We've been having a lot of fun, you guys, a lot of fun. And most of our fun is held in the kitchen, right?
Oh, of course.
Yes. And today we have some wonderful green foods that we're going to be preparing for you. Two awesome dishes. The first
is Emerald Dhal,
which we're going to talk a lot about. And then we have a southwestern green salad with tofu.
Yum.
So yeah, we're going to get right into this. All right, so first things first is we're going to go through our ingredients that we have. So for our Emerald Dhal, we're going to talk a lot about that. But first we have some onions that have been finely chopped. And then we've got some loosely chopped garlic. We have fresh ginger, really important to try to use fresh ginger here just for the flavor and freshness. And then we've got some jalapeno, and we have some cumin seeds. And for those of you who are not familiar with cumin seeds, that's what cumin seeds look like. And another ingredient that you may not be familiar with, we also have some black mustard seeds. These are seeds and seasonings that are very popular in Indian cuisine. We've got a few mint leaves. That smells amazing.
High in antioxidants.
Yeah, good stuff. A little bit of water and a little bit of salt. And then here we have, you can either use silken tofu, blitz that up to make it nice and creamy like, or you can use unflavored non-dairy plain yogurt. All right, so we're gonna get started first. Cody is gonna start off sauteing our onions. And if you notice, Cody is beginning this with a dry pan. So we start off we don't use any oil because oil is basically 100% or 95, 98% pure fat. Really, all of the fresh ingredients have been taken out. Basically, it's been stripped of fiber, stripped of a lot of the phytonutrients, vitamins, minerals, and what you're left with is just basically fat. Fat is 9 calories per gram, while your carbs and proteins are only 4 calories per gram, so we don't need that extra. So what do we do in case if things start sticking?
Well, it's a great question, Tammy, because a lot of people wonder, how do you cook without oil,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So our trick is to add a little bit of water. And it doesn't need it quite just yet, but that's all you would do. Just dump just a little bit in there. And
About a tablespoon or so at a time?
yeah,
Yeah.
just a little bit. And if you see it start sticking in one side, just pour a little bit of water on it and just scrape it. It comes right off. It works
Mhm.
great. So we're just gonna cook this for about 3 minutes here. So yeah.
We're gonna get that cooking. Now, the star of the show, well, we have 2 stars of the show.
Mm-hmm.
2 stars of the show. Besides us, is we have some black lentils that are also commonly known as beluga lentils or black caviar lentils. And these are not a lot of people are familiar with these, but these are one of the smallest lentils, and it gets its name because it looks like beluga caviar. We have pre-cooked this according to the package instructions. We've let it cool, and this is what it looks like once it's already cooked and cooled. So speaking of lentils, so lentils are really high in protein, plant-based power, because as we all know, all plants have protein, so we don't have to worry about our protein intake. There are different types of lentils. There are brown lentils, puey lentils, which are more French. We've got green lentils, yellow lentils, red lentils, and finally the beluga lentils that are great. And these are great even warm for like winter salads and things like that.
Nice. And I've never cooked with these before, so I'm excited about this
Yeah,
recipe today.
yeah. So lentils are highly nutritious. They're packed with vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and they're a really inexpensive way of getting a lot of bang for your buck. They're 25% protein.
My goodness.
So
that's incredible plant-based protein
Yeah.
right there. Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about getting your protein.
I'm gonna go ahead and add in the garlic and the
Mhm.
ginger here and let that cook a couple minutes.
And guess what the fat content is? Super low in fat, right? So we're following a low-fat, whole food vegan diet. So 0.8 grams, not even 1 gram of fat in 1 cup of cooked lentils. And we get 15.5 grams of fiber. Yes.
All right.
So most Americans are very deficient in fiber and are only getting about 15 grams, 12 to 15 grams a day, when we should be shooting for 40 ideally,
Right.
40 grams.
Yeah.
That is looking good, and oh, it smells
I'm gonna
delicious.
add in my cumin seeds and my garam masala and our black mustard seeds. And I've never actually worked with black mustard seeds before, so this is
Mhm.
a first.
There you go.
Oh yeah, I forgot those in. I thank you.
There you go. Awesome. So we're just cooking this until it becomes more fragrant. You can see the fragrance
Mm-hmm.
coming off. Amazing.
So good.
Smells really good. So this is all for the sauce that we're making right now. So that's what that looks like. So we're adding in a pound of spinach, and spinach has amazing disappearing powers, doesn't it? Put
Yeah.
a bunch of spinach in, and then it disappears. So spinach has a really high water content, so we're gonna start putting some spinach in here, folding that in little by little.
I'm probably gonna slop it out.
Oh, that's all right.
I'm a
We're amongst
sloppy
friends here.
Oh, yep, there goes one. Try not to burn myself in the kitchen. All right. Yeah, it's starting to go down just a little bit already.
And we'll add our mint in there too.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Talk to us what about spinach? Do you guys eat a lot of spinach in your house?
Yeah, we do. It's one of our favorites. And spinach, it's got vitamin K in it. So what's important to know about vitamin K
Yeah.
with anticoagulants?
Yeah, so patients, people who have on certain types of medications have to watch their levels of vitamin K, right?
Yep.
So we're just looking for the spinach to wilt down. And then once that is wilted down, we're going to make the spinach sauce by putting everything together in our blender back right behind us.
Yep. And that will make our beautiful sauce.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's starting to look really good.
Yeah, I think it's almost
So you see
done.
how this is all kind of wilted down now? It's getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Keep adding and adding. The smells are amazing.
It really is. It's almost there, I think.
Yep,
What do you
I
think?
think we're ready.
All right. Now,
All right.
spoon that in.
So we're just gonna spoon this in. Yep.
There we go. I'll try not to slop anywhere.
Oh,
Thank you.
hold that for us. And then we're just gonna add a little bit of water, pulse it down a few times. And this is gonna look amazing.
Mhm.
And you can either pulse this down until all the texture is until it's completely smooth, or if you like a little extra texture, you can, just keep it until, yeah, there you go.
Get all that goodness.
Yep, gotta get all that yummy sauce in there.
All right. I think we got
Oh,
it.
that's just gonna put that down. Okay, so now we're just gonna blitz this up really quickly. Okay. All right. All right. That's a beautiful color. Gosh. Do you guys see this beautiful color? This reminds me of some reason of, ooh, and that is hot.
Bet. Oh my gosh.
Steaming hot. All right, so now, what's our next step, Cody?
Well, we need to put that back in here.
Okay.
Then we're gonna mix in our yogurt.
Yogurt or silken tofu.
That's right, tofu, Tammy.
That's right. One of my favorites. All right.
That is so pretty in that pan.
Yes. All right, we're gonna stick that back on, turn this back on,
Yep.
and we're gonna mix in the yogurt first, and then our lentils.
Yep. And then if you want a little salt, and you can admit the salt, you don't have to have it.
Yep.
You might throw, I think we have a little bit to put in here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, oh my goodness, it's gonna make it a little bit brighter.
Ooh, look at that. All right.
All this in here. Yeah. Okay. Can't wait to try this.
So we've got some brown basmati rice here that's already been cooked according to the package instructions. What do you think?
Yeah.
So when you see your final mixture there, if you'd like to add more lentils, you certainly can, depending upon how thick you like it. But this is some brown basmati rice we're getting together. And being that the sauce was already warm, all we're just doing is just folding it in. And I think that's it.
Yep,
Right?
that is it.
You want to put that together first, Cody?
Yeah.
I'll move this stuff out of the
Love
way.
to. Okay. Turn this off. Okay. Oh, that looks awesome. All right, there we go. There's our finished product, our emerald
Yum.
bowl. So,
Yum!
can't wait to try this, Tammy.
Alrighty, let's put this behind us here. And I'll get rid of this for us. And then we'll start on our quick salad.
Got it.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
Good. All right, let me tell you our ingredients. So, should we make the dressing first?
Yeah.
Okay.
So here, let's show them the bowl first. So we've got spinach, and we've got arugula, and some finely chopped kale here. And then that's the base of our salad. And then we are going to add into our dressing. What are our ingredients?
All right, so we got some avocado.
Avocados going in first.
We got some lime juice.
All right, there we go.
We're gonna put in some salsa verde.
Salsa verde's going in.
Got some chopped cilantro, and you can keep the stems with that.
Mm-hmm.
We're just gonna mix it on up.
Yep. Get that in there.
And then, what do you want to do next? The silken tofu.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna make it nice and creamy.
And all of our seasonings. What seasonings do we
So
have
we got
here?
some garlic powder, some cumin, and coriander.
All right, all that's going in there.
Yeah, I think that's, let's see. We need to throw in, nope, that's it.
That's it.
Yep, the rest are the toppings. So we can mix that on up, Tammy.
All right, let's get this party started.
Let's do it.
Let me get my little tamper here.
Yeah. And if it's too thick, we may need to add just a little bit of water, so we'll just kind of keep our eye on it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's put a little water in there.
Yeah.
Let's turn that off. We'll put a little water in. And now we'll see how we do here. All right, that's literally it.
Looks perfect.
And here is our dressing. And again, depending upon how you like your consistency, that's how either thick or thin that's going to be for you. All right, Cody, let's get the rest of our ingredients.
All right, so we have a few good things here. Well, they're all good. So here, those stuck down. We got beans. We got pinto beans.
So we're just going to spread these out.
All right, we got some black beans.
Mm-hmm.
Yum. And then we have some red kidney beans that we're going to toss in here.
So many beans.
That's right. We got a little corn.
Gotta add this color.
Oh, it's beautiful.
All right.
Make it more southwesty.
Yes, indeed.
Yep, and then we got some chopped shallots.
More greens.
Yeah. We've got some yummy cucumbers.
All right.
And then we have some green peppers that we're going to add in here as
Oh,
well.
those bell
Oh
peppers.
my goodness, so many nutrients in this salad.
What about this for a little kick?
Well, we can totally add some of that in. Those are some jalapenos.
All right.
All right, and we can toss some of those in. These are pepitas, so they're pumpkin seeds, and these have actually been seasoned with a little bit of spices, so a little more kick. And then
Our Southwest tofu.
yeah. So what we did was, I'm trying to remember what we used for this. It was
We used taco seasoning,
yeah.
Southwest seasoning, and chili lime seasoning, and just bake this at 410 until our desired crunch, and then we're good to go.
yeah.
And then to top it all off,
Oh my goodness, that's looking good. Should we stir it up? You
Yeah.
wanna stir it up? Or you want me to
Go
stir
for it.
Okay.
all right.
So this has a lot of good beans in it, Tammy. So tell us a little bit about beans.
Oh, beans. Everybody thinks about beans with their digestion, and the more beans you eat, the less problematic it will be for you. For sure. Start low and slow. Start off with a tablespoon per week. Work your way up, and ideally you should be eating a few tablespoons or a few tablespoons by the end of a few weeks, and then after that, you'll be up to cups of beans. Beans are so good for you.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna plate this together. Yummy.
The pretty's on top there, and some of that
Perfect.
tofu on top.
There we go.
Put that in there. Come on.
All right. Cody, show everybody our Dhal. I'll hold on to our.
Oh, we got a dressing too. Should we
Oh,
put
yeah.
that on?
Put that
Is that gonna
dressing
pour
on
out? I might need a spoon maybe. Well,
Here it comes. A dollop will do ya.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, just a little dollop. And there we have it. This is our green southwestern salad with tofu and our lentil emerald Dhal. We hope you guys enjoyed our collaboration between Holistic Dish and Cooking on the Veg Health and Wellness. And who do we have next?
Up next is Jonin. So take it away, Jonin.
Hello everybody, thank you Tammy and Cody. I'm so envious. Hey, the theme is green. I'm green with envy that the two of you were able to film this episode together. Welcome to my kitchen in Abu Dhabi, where I'm all by myself, hoping one day one of my colleagues will come and cook together with me. Like we said, the theme is so many green foods, and I'm going to share with you a green recipe as well. My soup is has got rather humble ingredients. It's basically some green peas, leeks, celery sticks, garlic, shallots, some bay leaves, salt and pepper, and some decorations. It's really easy. Most of the work is basically in the thinly slicing of these veggies. So you take your celery, your leeks, and your shallots, and your garlic, and you thinly slice them. And the trick is to saute them very slowly for about 20 minutes on low heat. And we do that because we want to keep them green, and we don't want them to take on that sauteing, browning color, but keep them sauteed nicely and give them that sweet sauteed flavor. So basically, I chopped all my veggies, put them on a pan on very low heat, and gently stir them every now and then. In the meantime, I prepared other things for the soup, although there's not so much really. But way beforehand, I have also made some sunflower sour cream, the recipe of which is available to you in the recipe booklet. As with all the other recipes of this episode, you can find them on the recipe booklet, which is shared online on Facebook. So if you can make this, you can basically make this actually a day or two ahead and keep it in the fridge, so when you're getting ready for this soup, it can be there and you can use it for other things. I like this sunflower sour cream. The recipe comes from the Universal Meals of the Physicians Committee. It's in our booklet, but you can also go to Physicians Committee and check their Universal Meals recipes. They're yummy. After sauteing the veggies, you add your peas and the liter of water. The recipe I've given is for 4 people. I've made a half a recipe because we're only 2 at home, so I use a half a liter of water. Once your veggies were sauteed, you add the peas and the water, bring it to a boil, and cook gently for about 5 minutes. This is all so that you can give the peas a little cook. Fresh peas are yummy. I use frozen peas because that was easier for me to find, but if you find the fresh ones, go ahead and use them. Remember to pawn them. And then once they were cooked, I put them in my Vitamix, and this is what I have, but you can use any other blender. And I blended it until it's really creamy. For me, it took about 2 to 3 minutes to get it really creamy. And that process also keeps the soup warm, which helps you to skip a step in the soup, because the soup, once you've blended, you're supposed to put it back in and warm it up. So I skipped that. I also skipped using the sieve step because my blender makes it so smooth I don't need to put it through. However, if you have a not so high-speed blender, once you've done this, put it through a sieve and gently push it through the sieve, well, gently, not even so gently, until you have only a pulp left on your sieve, and what's in your pan would be really creamy, velvety soup. And that's why I call it the green velvet soup. So now that mine is ready, I just need to, before serving, I would like to give it a taste test. And you do that, can't get it out. So here it is. I take it off and it's really good. It could use a pinch of salt. So I'm gonna put the pinch of salt and maybe a tiny bit of black pepper. And if you use white pepper, the soup stays nicer and greener, but I put so little, it shouldn't really make a difference. Sorry for the noise. I'm just gonna blend it for a second. So my soup is ready. Remember, I'm skipping the step with the sieve, and since it's nice and warm, I can even just go ahead and serve it. So here it is. Watch out when you have hot liquids in your blender. So look at that. Amazing green, velvety, creamy soup. Right? This is what I do always. It's absolutely gorgeous, but we're not done yet. It's really good if you use just a teaspoon of basil pesto on this soup. It adds that extra flavor. But if you want to save time, you can also just take your basil leaves, roll them up like this, and thinly slice them, making them into thin ribbons. This is called chiffonade in cooking language, and I call it thin ribbons. So here you are. I have my thin ribbons. And here's my sour cream, the sunflower sour cream. I put a Dhal and my basil ribbons. And here we go. This beautiful soup, bright green, as you can see, just for our theme, is also very high in vitamins, especially vitamin A, C, and K. Vitamin K is an important one, and we often forget about it, but if you have this soup, you get plenty of vitamin K because peas, celery, and the leeks all have lots of vitamin K, A, and C. On top of that, for those of you worried about your glycemic index, all these ingredients are very low glycemic index, so this yummy soup will not give you a sugar spike. One more plus, have you ever asked your friends where do you get your fiber? Well, this soup will give you plenty of fiber too. It's good for you and good for your gut. Remember, do try this at home. Have a wonderful green St. Patrick's Day if you're celebrating it. And before I say goodbye, I'd like to pass the baton over to Jennifer in Shreveport, Louisiana, who's gonna give you the pesto recipe that will go yummy with this soup. Take it away, Jennifer. Bye, everybody. Goodbye from Abu Dhabi.
Thank you, John. And as always, so informative and everything looks so delicious. Hey, everybody, I'm Jen. I'm in Shreveport, Louisiana. We're still coming out of the winter season here, and I'm starting to crave summer foods and summer flavors. So I'm going to make you some pesto today. So pesto is normally made with cheese, with dairy product, and lots of oil. We're going to cut those out today and make a much healthier vegan pesto for you. So we're going to start with our basil. So normally your pesto is all basil, but we're going to substitute some other stuff in since basil is not in season. It's quite expensive at the grocery store. So I am just starting with about a half a cup of packed basil leaves from the store. And I do use the stems. There's lots of flavor in these stems. And if you use the skinny stems, they're still packed. And we're pureeing this in the blender or food processor, and you won't even notice those. Do throw away the really woody stems. They're hard to chop up and they're hard to chew. They sometimes get stuck in the sauce. But anyway, this is a half a cup of fresh basil going into my blender. And like I said, you can do this in a food processor as well. Now, to save some money, you can substitute the rest of the basil. Normally would be about 2 cups of basil total, but you can substitute with other greens, which is fabulous. I'm using spinach here today. I've used kale before. You can also use peas. And my friend Cindy in Seattle uses carrot tops to make her pesto. You might want to check that recipe out. Anyway, this is about 1.5 cups of finely packed baby spinach that I'm putting in here. Fills up the blender pretty well, but it's loose. So when you pack it down, you have about 2 cups of greens in there. To add the cheesy flavor, I am substituting for Parmesan cheese some nutritional yeast, which has like a Parmesan-y flavor. It's also loaded with B vitamins, so it's a much healthier option for you. We have 2 cloves of garlic that I crushed ahead. Now for some creaminess and some flavor, we're using pine nuts, which is the traditional nut used when you're making pesto. But you can also substitute walnuts or pecans. And if you're looking for a nut-free version of pesto, my colleague Diane likes to use pepitos or sunflower seeds, so those are good options too. The nuts add great flavor, lots of protein. They are higher in oil, so be careful when you're adding them. If you're on a low oil or low fat diet, natural oils are in there. But if you're on a low fat diet, you may want to adjust your nut level down a little bit. So we have a little bit of salt for flavoring. It's just about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Also going to put a little bit of fresh ground black pepper. And to brighten up the mix, we have 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So what I'm going to do now is chop this on a low speed. This blender has a low speed, which is awesome. So I'm just going to chop up the mixture a little bit. And with a food processor, you could pulse it here. And you do have to stop and push your mixture down in to the blades. Okay, one more mix and then we will add the liquid. Okay, now that it's chopped down a little bit, we're going to go ahead and add some liquid to this. Now this is normally where the oil goes into your dish, but we are going to use vegetable broth instead. So I'm going to turn it on. Keep it going a little bit. pour a little bit of veg stock right through the top. So I started with about a tablespoon. I'm going to mix that down a little. And it's chopping it beautifully. And it smells fabulous. Okay. Now this time I'm going to add a little more juice, and I'm going to keep blending it until it's nice and smoother. Not totally smooth, but smoother. And again, you'll want to stop and stir down the edges. Things do stick on the side. Okay, so it is still a little bit chunky, which is actually how I like my pesto for my pasta. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit on the pasta, and then I'm going to show you something else I like to do with it. So if you can see there, it's not a puree at this point, but I like it that way for my pesto pasta. And that's a pesto pasta dish. Awesome and delicious. But let's continue on. We're not quite finished yet. I'm going to scrape down the sides really well. Now I'm going to add a little more broth, and we're going to make this a little saucier, just a little bit. Since I've taken some sauce out, it's not enough in this big blender container to blend up, so I'm going to move to my smaller blender container. That way you'll also be able to see, not totally smooth. Now if you don't like it chunky on your pasta, blend it more. There we go. So you can see It is now a lot smoother, and this consistency is really great. I have some steamed broccoli here. Use it as a sauce over your veggies. You can also do this for your pasta if you like it thicker. So it's a great veggie sauce. It's also great. I'll spoon a little bit into, this is a bowl of tomato soup. If you want to make a fancy tomato soup dish, swirl it in there. Kind of give it a little scrunch. Beautiful tomato soup. And I'm going to put a little bit of this pesto aside for later. And we're going to make one more thing with this pesto. So I still have a little bit in here. What I'm going to do now is add a little more of the vegetable stock. Just a little more, maybe less than a tablespoon. I'm going to blend that up. Super quick. And now it's even thinner. And I'm going to use it as a salad dressing. Let's pour it right on my salad. Fresh greens with pesto, great summer flavors bringing into the winter months. So I hope that you'll give this pesto a try. Super easy, does not need the oil, does not need the cheese. There's so many great substitutes you can put in there. And it's just great in the winter to remind you what's coming ahead. I hope you enjoy it. And now I'm going to pass you to my colleague Ella, who's going to make a great hummus for you.
Hi, I'm Ella. I'm coming to you from Providence, Rhode Island. Welcome. And thank you, Jennifer, very much. So I'm very excited today to showcase one of my favorite greens, which is cilantro, also known as coriander. So for today's recipe, I'm going to do something very simple that I use in my family on a regular basis. We use it as snack. We also use it as a combination when we make a Buddha bowl or something like that, which is hummus. And I'm gonna make it with cilantro hummus. So, in order to make hummus, normally we go to green beans, garbanzo beans. And these are just dried garbanzo beans. You can boil them yourself, which is great. But for the sake of simplicity of today's recipe, I chose to use cans just to show you how easy this dish can come together. So, I have over here some organic garbanzo beans, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 3 cans. We eat a lot of hummus in my house, so I'm going to use 3 cans for that. And one of them, I'm going to use it with the liquid. The liquid that comes with the garbanzo beans is also called aquafaba. So if you are choosing, which is a great option, to boil your own garbanzo beans, make sure you save some of the liquid because you're going to use that. Okay, so it's about a cup. And then you can choose to use more or less depending on the consistency of the hummus that you like to have. So I put one of them with the whole liquid, and then the rest of them, I'm going to just drain out the liquid and just use the garbanzo. So I'm going to leave the liquid over there on the side, just use the garbanzos. And like I said, we love chickpeas in my house, so I like to do 3 cans at a time. This is a great appetizer whenever you have company over. Now that the COVID restrictions are kind of going away, this is a great way to bring people around the table with something healthy. All right, so this is the 3rd can of garbanzo beans or chickpeas, whichever way you want to call them. And then I'm going to add some garlic to it, depending on the strength of your garlic and also how much garlic your family likes. You choose how many pieces you want. I always go with about 3 or 4 pieces of garlic. And then to that, I'm going to add a little bit of lemon juice from about a lemon or so. And again, if you like it more lemony, you can add more. If you like it less, you can add less. And then I'm also gonna add a little bit of cumin. So this is basically the base of the hummus recipe that I always use. But today, like I said, I'm going to make a cilantro flavor. So probably I put about 1 teaspoon of cumin. I like the flavor of cumin. And my organic garbanzo beans have salt added to it, so I'm not going to add extra salt to my hummus. But if you're buying salt-free or you boil your own garbanzo beans and they have no salt, you might want to add a little bit of salt just to flavor it up to your taste buds. All right, and to that I have a big bunch of cilantro, and I'm just going to break it in there. All right. I really like the flavor of cilantro, so I'm going to use this whole bunch right in there. Just like that. All right. And I have my liquid to the side, the aquafaba, in case I need to go ahead and add a little bit more. So I'll have it on the side. And that's it. We're just gonna blend it up and see what we got. Isn't that easy? Great way to sneak in some greens in case somebody doesn't, necessarily like cilantro just like that, the way it is. So here we go. It's gonna be a little bit noisy. All right, looks like that should be done. Look at that beautiful green color. Excellent. So I'm just going to take a little bit, put it on the side over here. And you can serve this with anything you want, My favorite way of serving it is really with just some simple cucumber, just like this. I probably should use a little bit more salt to this. Or just like that. Beautiful cilantro hummus. And another way I like to use it is, I'm a teacher. So when I go to school and I did healthy lunches, I like to do Buddha bowls. Lots of veggies, some different kind of grains next to it, some beans, and then I always have a little bit of hummus right in the middle of it after I warm it up, so that I have different kind of flavors. And you can totally play with hummus and change it up in different flavors. So there you have it, cilantro hummus. I hope you enjoy it. Now I'm gonna pass it on to Stacy. Thank you.
Hey! I'm Stacy Heine from Indiana, and I am making you the easiest zoodle recipe ever. Now, you could use yellow zucchini, but since this is so many green foods, I'm gonna use green zucchini today. I have an actual spiralizer machine here, but I want you to know that you can make zoodles from a vegetable peeler, or they make julienne vegetable peelers that will actually strip your zucchini into little noodle shapes, but I really like this machine. So I'm gonna make some really quick zoodles, and this recipe will come together in no time. So I really like this machine. Again, it has this hand crank, and if you've never had zoodles before, this is a very low calorie, gluten-free noodle option. And in this recipe I also said, hey, if you don't have zoodles or zucchini noodles, you could also just use a green mung bean pasta if you really want to keep with the green theme. But look at that. That's the center. That's all that's left. And now I have noodles. I have zucchini noodles. And this recipe is going to come together in literally no time. I believe I'll do 2 zucchini for this. So the ingredients for this recipe are vegetable broth or water for your pan, zucchinis, dried parsley. You could absolutely use fresh parsley as well. Garlic powder. You could also absolutely use fresh garlic as well. Crushed red pepper, which is optional. And then nutritional yeast to add some cheesy flavor to the dish at the very end. Look at me, I'm making a really big mess, sorry. I thought maybe it would actually go right into my pan, but I was definitely wrong. It's okay. All right, so I will take this zucchini spiralizer away, and you can spiralize so many different veggies with this, but it suction cups to your table and has a lot of different blades to it. So I think it's a really cool, nifty machine to have, and we will definitely link this in the show notes so that you can get your hands on one as well. Okay, so I have my pan heating at what I would say is probably medium to medium high heat. And I'm just going to add several tablespoons of, I'm just using water, but you can absolutely use broth if that is something that you would like for flavor. So now the water is simmering, and I'm just going to add my zucchini noodles right to the pan. Now, something that's really nice and handy to have, because these zucchini noodles will be very long, is some kitchen shears. So some kitchen shears will help you to make these more easy to eat and not so long. So I just simply take my shears and cut the noodles up. Whoop. I'm making a big mess today. Okay, now as those are cooking, which I'm literally just going to cook for just a few minutes, I'm going to add my garlic powder. You just listen to your intuition or follow my recipe when it comes to how much you'd like to add. We really like garlic around here, so I add a lot. And if I want to eat this for a meal for myself, I will do up to 5 zucchinis so that I get nice and full. And it's so simple for a lunch or dinner if I just really want to, get a quick meal put together that's very, very simple. Now I'm going to put parsley in, and then I'm going to add some crushed red pepper. Just a little bit. You don't have to add this, but it is definitely fun to flavor the food with. Lastly, I'm going to add balsamic vinegar, but of course I forgot to get that. So let's just let this cook, and I'm going to go grab that. 1 second. Okay. So my zoodles are cooking. You can cook these as long or as short as you would like, but what I say in the recipe is to just kind of let the liquid reduce and absorb into these zucchini noodles. And then at the last minute, you can add your balsamic vinegar and spices, but I added the spices a little early today. But they wilt down a lot. And I think the dried parsley really adds a fun element of green. So if you're making this with just regular pasta, you could totally make this recipe with just regular pasta and add your garlic powder, balsamic vinegar, crushed red pepper, a little bit of nutritional yeast on top. And it is simple, nutritious, delicious, fiber-packed, anti-inflammatory. A lot of people eat zoodles raw, if they're living in the raw vegan world, or they'll just eat them raw for fun. But then I just add balsamic vinegar and let it reduce. And then to plate it up, I take the zoodles, put them onto a plate or in a bowl. Depending on how you like to serve them up. Tongs would be a nice addition to this so that I could take it off very easy. But look at that, it's beautiful. It has seasoning in there, and then you can just take nutritional yeast and pour as much as you'd like on top for a cheesy flavor, and top with a little bit additional crushed red pepper, and enjoy. This is the easiest zoodle recipe ever, and I hope that you try it in celebration of green food. And now I'm going to hand the mic over to Susanna, and I hope that you really enjoy this show and that you get more green foods into your life. Be well and take care.
All right, thanks Stacy. That looks so good. Hi everyone, my name is Susanna Dickman and I'm from Evansville, Indiana. And today I'm going to make you something that I grew up eating within my Polish family in Chicago. And what I'm making in Polish is actually called gołąbki. My mom used to always call it pigs in a blanket. I don't know why it had that name, but as kids we thought that was kind of funny. Of course, her version wasn't plant-based, so I have been making this version and I love it and my family loves it. This recipe is rather extensive, so it's good to do it in stages. And I'll talk about how I did that to get this all here. But we're going to use a green cabbage, and you can tell my green cabbage is a little translucent. It's been boiled, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But you can use a regular green cabbage, or you could use a Savoy cabbage. And if you'll notice, the Savoy cabbage is a little bit deeper green and the leaves aren't quite as thick. So Savoy cabbage is best when it's cooked. You know, a green cabbage we can cut up and eat it raw in a slaw or something like that because it really holds its texture. The Savoy cabbage is a little softer, but it's a great sub for this recipe. And this one is a nice one. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this one yet. But we know cabbage is so healthy for us, right? It's got a cruciferous vegetable, which means it has cancer-fighting properties, vitamin K, vitamin C, vitamin A. It's high in fiber, low in calories. You know, people are always looking to cabbage when they need a vegetable that's inexpensive. You know, I mean, St. Patrick's Day is coming, cabbage, I think I paid 79 cents a pound for this one. It's gonna end up being 29 cents a pound. So, you know, it really is an inexpensive and versatile vegetable that's so good for you. So let's get to our recipe. And the first thing that I did, as I said, was I took my whole cabbage and I just kind of made a square around the core. And I put a pot of salted water on to boil. Once it was boiling, I put the whole cabbage inside and just stood there and kind of watched and started, you know, picking at it to see. And when I was able to peel, you can see I peeled off the leaves very easily. So that's when it's done. You don't want to leave it. I think mine was in there for maybe 5 minutes total. So depending on how big your cabbage is, you know, you're just going to watch it and then just start peeling the leaves, set them aside. You want them to cool because we're going to wrap them with our stuffing. The next thing I did, and I don't know if you'll see everything in here, but originally, as I said, my mom would use, my mom would use either hamburger or pork and rice. originally I read and learned just recently that in Poland, they would use buckwheat and potatoes, which I think is great. So it was almost, a vegan dish before. I decided to use buckwheat. So I have some buckwheat in here, and this is what you can cook ahead of time. I cooked my buckwheat yesterday. I have some brown rice, which I cooked yesterday. And then I just sauteed a large onion and some garlic and mushrooms in a pan so that the mushrooms are, they don't have to be cooked all the way. The onion's translucent. And that's what's in here with a little bit of salt and pepper. So real easy, a real easy mixture. You can change this. Millet would be a good addition. I used white mushrooms, but you can use other mushrooms, just be creative with what you want to add. You might add some vegetables, some carrots, celery, it's up to you what you want to add. So this is done. Now, this is some of my cabbage, the littler leaves that were on the inside. And what I'm going to do is just kind of slice this, because this is going to go at the bottom of my dish. We're going to bake our gołąbki, and so we want to put this cabbage on the bottom of our dish because we don't want the gołąbki to burn. It doesn't matter how much you want to put, we're going to eat this cabbage too, so it's up to you. I think, I just want to make sure I have a good layer there so that the gołąbki that I put together will actually lay on this. Now I'm going to start rolling. So here is, I always start with the core facing me just because, it doesn't bend as well. You can see I can bend this part here, and this part, I'm going to follow the bend in it. But now I'm starting with 1/3 cup, and this is a pretty big leaf. So I'm going to add another 1/3 cup of my barley, rice, mushroom, and onion mixture. I think I'm going to add even a little bit more. I like them stuffed. All right, so now, just like we do a burrito, so I'm going to leave this side open, and I'm just going to start rolling until I get it there. So you can see I'm holding it down now, but once I put it in my cabbage, in my pan, it will be fine. You could use a toothpick if you wanted to, but I don't think you really need to, but you could stick a toothpick in it while it's cooking. Now this is probably my biggest leaf. So I'm going to see how much. Now I've got 1/3 cup. Whoops. I'm going to have to I have more mixture. I had about 15 leaves from my cabbage, but I'm just making 3 to show you. So here we go again. Just roll the side and then pull it around. And there we go. Oh, those are looking so beautiful. So beautiful. All right, let me get my last one. Let's see. Maybe if you're watching in the comments, let us know what are some things you think you might. Do you like buckwheat? Might you use millet? Even if you are into textured vegetable soy protein or some of the meat crumbles, you might do that too. So let me get my last one rolled here. There we go. So that's about all that I am going to fit into this pan. I have a bigger casserole pan that I am going to roll the rest and put it in. So now we've got that part done. In the recipe, when you're making 10 or 12 of these in a big casserole dish, it tells you to add about 1 cup of vegetable broth. Well, since I only have a few, I'm going to add let me see. I want it to be covered. I'm going to add the whole thing. You want them to be covered about 1/3 of the way, or you want to put 1/3 of the amount of water. So if you can see the water there, I think that will work out good. Then I'm going to put my tomato sauce, and I have the recipe for that too. I make a lot of different tomato sauces. Some people actually use tomato soup if they have a great vegan recipe. I think my mom sometimes, to make it this easier process, would use canned tomato soup. This tomato sauce that I made just has cashews and tomatoes and salt and pepper, and I soaked my cashews for a couple hours and processed them. And I do make some without cashews, just, you know, plain, because I have a son with tree nut allergies. But, you know, whatever your favorite tomato sauce is what you can choose. So there's lots of freedom with this recipe to make it your own. So there we go. Next, I'm gonna put the lid on, and that's it. So this is gonna go in my oven at 350 for about 45 minutes. You're gonna see it bubbling and oh my goodness, they are just gonna be so good. So here are some that I made earlier today because I wanted you to see the finished product. I don't know how well you can see, but they did turn a little bit more brown, and you can even see inside. You can see the mixture inside, the stuffing. And I like to add extra tomato sauce because I like tomatoes. I like tomato sauce. And this is another vegan sour cream that I added to the mix because you might want to dollop some on top if you want, and it's just so good. So please make some gołąbki, stuffed cabbage, and let me know how you like it, and let me know what else you want to order. All right, next is Melissa. And Melissa, I can't wait to see what you are going to make. Thank you, everyone, for spending time with us today. Bye.
Well, thank you, Susanna. I can't wait to make that stuffed cabbage dish for St. Patrick's Day. My mom always loved that dish, and I have never tried a dish with cabbage like that, with a cooked cabbage. So my name is Melissa Sherlock, and I'm coming to you from Omaha, Nebraska, and I have two things I'm going to show you real quick. One is a shamrock shake, which is a way healthier version than the one that you get at McDonald's, which is not good at all. And then I'm going to make one of my favorite kale salads, because I think if we talk about green foods, we need to talk about salad. And mine is kale. I think when we talk about green foods, it's fun to talk about them for St. Patrick's Day. I'm a Sherlock, so pretty Irish. And also, we just talk about green foods in the spring. So let's get started. I'm gonna first make the shamrock shake because ice cream is a melting. So over here, I've got a soy-based ice cream, 2 cups in my Vitamix. And you can use a cashew-based ice cream or an almond-based ice cream. I try to stay away from the coconut-based ice creams because they have so much more saturated fat. To this, we are going to add, for the color, some spinach. So a big handful, I might not add all of it, but a big handful of green spinach, that's what's going to give us the color. I've got 3/4 cup milk, and I'm using an unsweetened soy milk. And then the recipe you'll see calls for either mint leaves or a couple of drops of mint extract. Now, just FYI, this mint extract is strong, and a little bit will do you. And if you get it too strong with the peppermint, it's not enjoyable. So be very careful just to add a couple of drops. But today, since I'm using the Vitamix that can grind it all up, I'm going to use real mint leaves that I bought at the store, like this. And then I think after this, I'm gonna make some kind of salad using the mint. And then I've got some garnish. I've got some little non-dairy mini chocolate chips and another little sprig of mint to just garnish it. So all we do is put those things in and we give it a whiz. Okay, so basically you want to blend the shake until you cannot see any spinach bits. And that's why it's really nice to use the Vitamix. It looks really green, as you can see. And so I'm gonna put it in my cup. This is a little thinner than I would like it. I might have used a little bit too much milk. And then typically I get a little bit of, I get some of the almond. It's kind of like Ready Whip. It's a whip in a can. And I like to get the almond, one of that. They also have coconut, but I could not find either one of those as I was looking. So I got a frozen whip like this, and it does happen to be coconut. The reason, again, I don't prefer coconut for this is one, the saturated fat, and number two, the coconut flavor comes through a little bit more than if you are making it with almond. So here I usually will do the can and do a nice layer of whip on top, and then we are just going to put a few chocolate chips on, and I always like to garnish it with a little mint. I made this, we made this in a kids class I taught, where we actually had a class on St. Patrick's Day, and this was a big hit. Now remember, the ice cream it's not one of the healthiest things. It still has fat and sugar in it, but for St. Patrick's Day, for a special treat, for something really festive, we allow ourselves one in the Sherlock household. So there is our Shamrock Shake. Now I'm gonna move to my kale salad. So you can see that I have stripped all the kale from the stems, and I have it in this bowl. In fact, I think I'm gonna offload a little bit of it just so this will be a little easier. What I'm gonna do is massage the kale. So I'm going to use about 1/3 of an avocado, and I'm gonna squeeze some lemon juice. About half a lemon, I think, is plenty. And I'm gonna put in some garlic and some maple syrup. And what I'm gonna do is massage all of this right into the kale. I have washed my hands. You get this avocado in your hands. You can hear this kale is crunchy. And you know when you've gotten it massaged because it breaks down a little bit. It's easier to eat, and it also gets quieter, and it gets darker green, and it's much more pleasant for people who think they may not like kale. So I'm going to keep going just another minute. The kale gets really pretty and glistening from the avocado. The lemon gives a really bright flavor. You've got a little bit of maple syrup to offset the lemon, and then you've got a really nice garlicky taste. Okay, so my kale is ready. Now I'm going to prepare the white beans. All I've done is I have rinsed a can of white cannellini beans. I'm also going to add some lemon to the beans. And I'm going to give it some parsley. So when I do this, I really just get my kitchen scissors and hold it, and I just really try to finely snip. I hope you're getting a good look at this. Finely snip some parsley into the beans. Probably could be a little smaller. And you might have another way of mincing your herbs that you like. And then I'm going to give it a really nice grind of salt and pepper. So really it's just lemon and parsley and salt and pepper into the beans. And usually I do this first, and I stir them up, and then they're ready when I'm done. All right, you also make croutons. So the way that I make croutons is I simply toast a couple of slices of sprouted grain, organic, whole grain bread, and I just cut them up into cubes. If you don't mind a little bit of oil, you can spread these out on a baking sheet and give it a really light spray of something like an avocado oil or an olive oil, and then you can sprinkle them with salt and pepper if you want, and bake them and turn them on both sides. I find that just the toast really is enough. So now I have my beans, I have my greens, and I'm just going to put the salad together here. We eat this as an entree salad, or it can make some nice side salads. And I'm just going to put some of my beans on there. The beans add heartiness. Beans are the one food is most associated with health all around the world. And now I'm going to give a few little sliced almonds, those aren't necessary, and some red onion, and some Kalamata olives. And then, of course, I'm going to add the bread. And real quickly, I am going to whip up a dressing. And my dressing is tahini, a quarter of a cup of tahini. Some more garlic. It calls for a clove. I use 2. Some lemon juice. And a little more maple syrup. So this is going to be almost everything we used to massage the salad, plus a little tahini to make it creamy. And it also, I can tell you, we're going to need a little warm water to thin that because the tahini is pretty thick. And this is what's going to go over the salad. And you can actually toss this in your greens too. Okay, try that again. It's kind of getting stuck. Okay, so you can actually take this dressing, toss it into the greens that you have massaged, and then to serve it, you can just drizzle a little bit more over the salad. It's plenty thick. This salad has never failed me for a ladies' lunch, for a family. Everybody seems to like it. So that is my very, very healthy white bean and kale salad for spring / St. Patrick's Day / Easter. So thank you for joining me in my kitchen. I'm going to turn it over now to Food for Life instructor Mark, who is going to make some broccoli, another one of my favorite foods. Thank you so much.
That looks great, Melissa. I just love kale and white beans, probably my 2 favorite combinations of a legume and a vegetable. So lots of fiber. Beans and greens are some of my favorite. Mark Cirkvenik here, Let's Eat Great Food. You can find me at letseatgreat.com or on Facebook at Let's Eat Great. Today I'm going to do some southern broccoli. I'm roasting this broccoli, and this is one of the recipes I'm actually going to be cooking in Charleston in about a little bit over a month for my first tour. I'm going to be going this year in Charleston for a group of 11 folks. And this is a really simple recipe, folks. I like simple. I like fresh ingredients. Simple and fresh are my 2 favorite types of foods to cook. So what we've got here is some broccoli. We're just going to take the florets, and if you can get some little stalks, that's great too. You're going to wash your broccoli and leave it wet, because what we want is we want all the spices we're going to add here, very simple spices, to stick to the broccoli. So what we'll do is we'll take our half a cup of nutritional yeast, pour that right in there. We're going to take a half a teaspoon of salt. This is sea salt. Put that in there, and we're going to do several grinds of black pepper. The recipe calls for a half a teaspoon. We're just going to put a bunch of grinds in there, about a half a teaspoon of black pepper. There we go. And we're just going to mix that up with our hands really good. So my little hat here I have on, I'm debuting it, actually I debuted it this week for a group of students, middle school students. I was doing a little cooking class with them and making some great food for them and getting them introduced to plants and plant-based eating. So I thought I'd share that today with you as well. So we're just going to keep mixing that wonderful broccoli. Really simple. We're just going to now pour that on the baking tray, and you want to put this in a nice one layer, kind of like that. And the broccoli that I made for you is done. So we'll go ahead and just lay that out. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take a lemon. So you can, if you have a large lemon like I do, just cut it in half, and then we're going to quarter that lemon up, and we're going to roast the lemon. So I guess this would actually be eighths, right? We're going to roast that lemon with our broccoli. All right, and there you have it. That's how simple it is. I'm going to grab the one I prepared for y'all. It's about as southern as I get, y'all. Out of the oven here. And you can see how lovely that is. It's all nice and roasted and toasted. And this will go right back into the oven. And then all you do is you grab some of your lemon, and it's really hot, so be careful. And just squeeze some of your lemon right on there. It's nice and roasted. You kind of just dab it around. And I'm gonna taste a little piece for you here. Nice and crunchy and brown. Oh, this is really good. Nice and crunchy and cheesy because of the nutritional yeast. Got a little bit of tang there from the lemon. And there you have it, folks. Beautiful grilled broccoli. It's a beautiful green food. Hope you enjoy this recipe. Thank you very much, and look me up on Facebook at Let's Eat Great Food or let'seatgreat.com on the web, or check out some of the tours at Veg Johnson Journeys. Thanks, folks. Have a great day. And Karen Osborne, take it away.
Thanks, Mark. Good choice of green food. Broccoli is just the superfood, right? So I'm going to continue on that theme with another broccoli recipe. This one is really simple and really fun. As you know, broccoli is full of antioxidants, and it's a good source of vitamin C, good for building collagen, and good for your immune system. It's a good source of K1, which your body can convert. So K1 is important in blood and clotting, and your body can convert a bit of it to K2, which is important in activating a protein that moves the calcium out of your arteries and veins into your bones and your teeth. That's important. It's a cruciferous vegetable, which is great for making sulforaphane, which is a really, really powerful antioxidant. It's cancer protective. And I always like to mention Dr. Greger's hack and hold method. So if you have any cruciferous vegetables, they have an enzyme and a precursor that combine when you chew it, you bite it, or you cut it. And that makes the sulforaphane. The sulforaphane is not damaged by heat, but that enzyme is damaged by heat. So if you're going to be cooking it, like Dr. Greger says, hack and hold, just like chop it and hold it for about 40 minutes and you produce that sulforaphane. Or you can put a little bit of raw cruciferous on your cooked and it will do the same thing. Mustard powder is a raw mustard seed powder. You could just sprinkle that on your cooked food. But I bought broccoli that was already chopped in a bag. So it's been sitting a lot more than 40 minutes and I'm ready to cook it. So this recipe is in two parts. I mean, we're going to, I'm going to put my screen down and maybe Okay, you can see my food processor a little bit. All right, so we're just going to put the wettish ingredients in the food processor. I've got broccoli and I've got onions. These are broccoli pancakes, by the way. I don't remember if I said that. And I've got a little bit of garlic. This is fresh garlic. It's going to be really good, but if you only have garlic granules or garlic powder, that will work too. About a 1/4 teaspoon is equal to a clove of garlic. And what else? Oh, I have parsley. So I've already measured my parsley and washed it. And I'm just going to put it in the food processor. So parsley is full of another good green food, full of antioxidants. And let's see. Oh, what I was going to show you is just this neat little tool. This is like a little measuring cup. It goes up to a 1/4 cup. And then it has different size holes. You choose the one that's appropriate for the herb that you are removing the leaves, and then just pull it through. And it usually falls right down into your cup, and you can measure how much you want. I like to do that before I wash it, though, because it's easier to do this with dry herbs. Gonna make some room here. So what I just have the broccoli, the onions, the garlic, and the parsley in there. And I'm going to put the lid on the food processor and pulse it until it's rice-like. You know how you rice the cauliflower for cauliflower rice? We're going to do the same thing with the broccoli and the onions. Right. And that's all it takes. I'm just going to move this. All right. So I'm just going to show it to you real quick and then set it aside for a minute. Then we're going to make the dry flour mixture. And I have rolled oats back here. Just going to put in the food processor, in the blender. And the oats are a good source. They have B vitamins. They have a lot of minerals that are good for your bones. They have beta glucans, fiber that actually feeds the good gut bacteria. And then I'm going to also use some buckwheat groats. These are both gluten-free. But the reason I'm using the buckwheat groats is because if you just use the oats, the batter is kind of gummy. And if you use a little buckwheat with it, it makes it more bready when you make your pancake. And then I'm going to put some onion powder. So I know we have onions in here, and then the onion powder is just going to bump up the flavor a bit. And I make my own baking powder. This is just going to help it rise. This is like 1 part baking soda and 2 parts cream of tartar. And I'm just going to put, let's see, a tablespoon. And then if you're using salt, you can add a little salt. If you're not, you can leave it out. It works either way. It tastes great. And I think I have covered it all. Okay, so we're going to put the lid on here and grind this into a flour. I'm just going to move my blender up. And I'm going to mute myself while I grind it. I'll be right back. Okay, and that's all that takes. Move my blender out of the way. And then I have a mixing bowl. we go. And I'm just going to add the flour mixture to my bowl. So I'm heating my pan because you want to just add this to a warm, hot pan. And this is a scan pan. It's PFOA and PFOS free. And the way you test it is just put a little bit of water on there, and if it sizzles and disappears, then it's good to go. All right, so I've put the flour in my bowl. I'm going to add the water. You can use plant-based milk if you prefer like a richer batter. And I'm just gonna stir that up into a batter. Just gonna break up all the lumps, but it doesn't have to be completely smooth. All right, so while you want to work kind of fast here, while that is reacting, we're just going to take the broccoli mixture and just fold it into the batter. So besides being really health supportive, the onions also make it taste really, really good. It smells like onions here, onions and broccoli. And I'm just going to stir that up quickly. Get it kind of mixed in. And then at this point, if you like black pepper, add some. If you don't, you can leave it out. I think it gives it a nice kick. And then you can drop it by 1/8 cup, which is like 2 tablespoons. So I have a 1/4 cup measure, and I would usually use, I'll use about half of it. I'm going to make them pretty small right now so they can get done faster. And you're just going to drop it onto the hot pan. And by the end of the show, I'm going to make some more. I'll have it ready for Q&A, some bigger ones. But they're not really that big. So these can be used for a meal or a snack or an appetizer. It's just a savory pancake. And I think I am, this is pretty much the normal size. Not successful in doing less than. All right, so you just want to let those bubble up a little bit, get dry on the top, and then we're going to flip them over. While we do that, I'm going to show you the sauce. So I have this is some soy yogurt that I make and just keep in my fridge. And I have added onion powder and garlic granules. And a little bit of salt, and then I'm just going to stir in some fresh chives. And I have more chives for topping, garnish, but that's all you need. And it kind of tastes like a sour cream and onion dip. And I think we could turn these pancakes, at least one. It's a little, I would wait a little bit longer. I don't want to make you have to sit here and watch the pancakes cook. it's gonna work. I'll let that one go a little bit longer. But this pan is really nice because it just cleans up really fast. You don't need any oil. It cleans up with soap and water. And a lot of times if you know, nothing sticks as long as you don't put oil on it. A lot of times if you've used oil or not cleaned it very well, the food will stick. As long as you just wash it real quick. That's great for no oil cooking. Now I'm just going to take these off and usually I do it on the gas stove. These need to cook just a little bit longer. But I'm going to take some of my yogurt sauce. And a little more chives. You could use green onions. You could top it with parsley, or whatever you desire. And we have great broccoli pancakes. Yeah, the dog, sorry. All right, so I'm going to come back at the end of the show in the Q&A and show the rest of the pancakes. But I'm going to toss you over to Angelita Hughes, and she's going to be making some yummy stuffed poblano peppers. Take it away.
Thank you. Those pancakes look really, really good. I'm actually going to try those this evening. So thanks for sharing that. I've got some broccoli that I need to use up. Hi, my name is Angelita Alvarez Hughes. I'm coming to you guys from Greenville, South Carolina. I am also a Food for Life instructor. My company is Earth, Seeds, and Water, and I do private teaching classes. I'm an instructor as well. So today I am going to be making stuffed poblano peppers, and I had to do a lot of this already ahead of time because it's a 3-step process. So I've got some of them cooking right now because you do kind of have to let them cook in the sauce. This is when you coat the peppers. And I did have to use just a little bit of oil in the pan. But I just used a tiny, tiny bit. The original recipe, you actually have to almost deep fry the poblano peppers in the batter, and then you put that in your sauce. So with the way I'm making it, it's just a little bit of oil. I just coated the bottom. So what you do is you take a poblano pepper and you roast it under the broiler. You can roast it directly onto, if you have a gas stove, you can just sit them directly on the fire and then just roast them until the skin blisters. Or you can do what I do, and this is what it looks like when they've been roasted. I put mine in the air fryer at roast at 400 degrees for about 10 minutes and just turn them a couple of times. Take them out, and then you're going to put them into a plastic bag and you're going to seal them and let them sit there at least 20 to 30 minutes. The longer they sit, the easier the skin comes off. And this is what we want to do. We want to take off this tiny little layer. So I'm going to take that off real quick. And you can stuff these with just about anything, even the stuffing that they used earlier in the cabbage rolls, I think would be delicious with this. And so my stuffing that I'm putting is mushrooms, and I used firm tofu. Now what I did with the tofu in order to give it a more meaty texture was I put it in the freezer in the package, and then I took it out and let it thaw, and I squeezed the excess water out of it. And what happens is it just gives it this meatier texture. I'm going to show it to you. And this is what it looks like. It's just crazy. Now, when you put this together, just follow the recipe. As you can see, it looks a little bit dry. Do not add any liquid to this because as it's cooking, the mushrooms will release its own juices. If you add liquid to this, it's going to make it really runny. Okay, so I've taken off all the skin off of the pepper. All right, so you just want to discard that. You can put it in your compost bin and put it out in your garden. Now what we're going to do is we're going to remove the seeds. So you're going to pull off the little back part, and with a sharp knife, you're just going to very gently cut across the top layer. You're going to open this up, and what I found to work wonderfully to remove the seeds, and also when I'm scooping out zucchini to fill those in, is a grapefruit spoon. You see how it's serrated right here? This works amazingly to be able to scoop things out instead of using a knife and messing things up or cutting a little bit deeper than you need it to. When you are taking out the seeds, do not rinse this underwater. What you'll be doing then is you're going to be removing that beautiful flavor of roasting it, of where you roasted it. You're going to add excess water to your peppers, and it's not going to turn out as good as it would have. Now, you are going to get your hands dirty with this. So my hands have been washed completely. You can wear gloves. Poblano peppers, the Scoville on them is between 1,000 and 2,000, sometimes a little bit higher. I've eaten poblanos that are sweet, and I've eaten some poblano peppers that are very, very spicy. So it's hit and miss. I've heard that it has a curly tail or stem at the end, and they're going to, like I said, you're going to get your hands dirty. So you put it on your hands, just like this, where it's open, and then you're going to scoop the filling in here. And you can use any kind of filling. If you don't like tofu, you can do cauliflower, the rice cauliflower with the mushrooms. You can do the rice and beans. You can even fill it with more vegetables. I mean, the choices are endless. Now I have these little toothpicks, and I'm just going to go in here just to kind of seal it. Now I am going to take this and I'm going to roll it in a little bit of flour, and I'm using the same flour that I use to make the batter, which is a chickpea flour. And I did chickpea flour, one, if someone has gluten allergies, this is a good substitute. And two, you got extra protein. So there, in 1 cup of chickpea flour, there's like 21 grams of protein. So that is the reason that I chose this. And I just mixed equal amounts of chickpea flour with vegetable stock. You don't have to use vegetable stock. You can use water. And then also you can season this as much, with any seasonings you like, garlic powder, whatever. I didn't add any seasonings to this because there's a lot of seasonings in the filling, and there's a lot of seasonings in the sauce that it cooks in. So right now we're going into the pan. And it doesn't take a long time to cook. And yeah, I made a mess. Okay, now for the cooking sauce, you take 2 chipotle peppers and adobo sauce. So make sure it's in the adobo sauce because that's going to give you more flavor. And then you're going to use the Roma tomatoes as well. I've made it with different tomatoes, but for some reason the Roma tomatoes just marinate really well with the other seasonings that we're using. And we're using white onion, garlic, chopped cilantro, and vegetable stock. You put everything into your blender and you just let it blend until it's very it's liquefied. It almost looks like a soup. And you're going to pour it into your pan and let that start boiling. I'm using a terracotta pan or olla de barro, which is how it's pronounced in Spanish. Maybe it's just nostalgia, but to me, it gives it that authentic flavor. So that's why I do it this way. So as the pepper is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and spoon one of these out that I made earlier. Now, please don't forget to take the toothpick out of this before you serve it. And so this is what, hold on, let me get some of this beautiful sauce in here. So this has been cooking for about 20 minutes. You can put rice down at the bottom. You can even do some of the zoodles that they did earlier. That would be delicious with this as well. But this is what you end up with. And we're going to add a little bit of cilantro to the top of this. Some fresh lime juice on there as well. And you just eat it like that with a spoon. Or if you're like I am, you're going to need some toasted corn tortillas on there, and then you make yourself some little tacos with it. But you've got lots of protein, lots of vitamins, lots of minerals, very, very low fat. Now, there is fat in the tofu, but if you want to eliminate that, again, you can use potatoes in this application as well. And that will help cut down. So now we're going, let me show you what happens. Okay, so now we're flipping this and see how that looks. That's what you want. Now, if you want to completely eliminate the fat, you cook it this way as well. Don't coat the bottom. Just make sure you have a really good non-stick pan. And then you're going to cook until it's golden brown. What you're going to do is after that, you're going to put it in your air fryer, or you can put it in the oven. So in the air fryer at air crisp, in the setting for air crisp, at 400 degrees, I put those in there for about 6 minutes. That's what I did with these. And so then gave it that texture that you need so it won't fall apart. And then I put it in there, and you can see how well it held up with no issues. If you don't like poblano peppers, you can follow the same step with bell peppers, or the other, I believe they're called banana peppers as well. And then some people who are very brave and love spicy stuff also do this with habaneros, and then they do it with something called a chile perrón or a chile manzano, which translates to an apple pepper, and it's shaped just like an apple. It's spicy like a habanero, but the flavor, it has more flavor and the heat doesn't linger. It's just absolutely delicious, and all these are found in the Latin markets. So anyway, so this is my recipe. It's great if you want to make it and then eat it the next day. It holds wonderfully. So if you're batch cooking, that's even something that is wonderful for that. Now, if you roast a lot of poblano peppers and you're like, what am I going to do with all this? Take the seeds out, and then you can freeze them. So freeze them, and then you let them thaw in the refrigerator, and then you take them out and you follow the same process, and you'll have those ready to go for future chile poblanos or chile rellenos. So anyway, so that's my segment. Thank you so very much for spending your Saturday with us. And I wish everybody lots of health and lots of happiness. And coming up next, we've got Carolyn, who's going to be making an oil-free chimichurri sauce. So I'm so excited to try that one. So take it away.
Hi, Angelita. Thank you. I love your cute haircut. It looks so good. And I can't wait to try that. We get poblano peppers at our farmer's market every summer, and I always wonder what to do with them. So I am definitely going to try your recipe. It sounds great.
Wonderful. All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everybody. I'm Carolyn in Montgomery, Alabama, and I am making an oil-free chimichurri sauce. So what is chimichurri sauce? If you have never heard of chimichurri sauce, you're in for a treat. If you have heard of it before and have had it before, my guess is that it had a lot of oil in it. So traditional chimichurri sauce is originated in Argentina, and the traditional recipe contains a lot of oil. And so like a half a cup in most recipes. And so I really like chimichurri sauce, but I thought, we've got to make this healthier without all that oil. So what could we do to replace the oil? So I have a couple of different options for you. Chimichurri sauce is a very flavorful sauce. It has a lot of flavor from parsley, from cilantro, from garlic, lots of garlic, and red or white wine vinegar. So it is, as you can tell just by those ingredients, it is a very flavorful sauce. So what I'm doing to replace the oil today is avocado. Now, if you want to make it completely fat-free, you could use aquafaba, which is the liquid from a can of chickpeas. So you could use that instead. It won't be as creamy, but it should still taste really good, and it will thicken up because of that aquafaba. But I'm going to use avocado, which, as you know, is a very temperamental ingredient. You know how I've seen memes where it shows they're not ready, they're not ripe, they're not ripe, they're not ripe, and then they're ripe, and then boom, they're too late. So hopefully I have these just right. I have a couple of backups. So when we cut this one open, if it's not good, then I have a few more. So let's check. One way to know if it's ripe is to just pull the stem out and look in the little hole that's left. And if it's a nice pale green, your avocado is probably ripe. So this one looks like it's probably ripe. So what I'm doing is setting it down flat, because you always want to keep the knife blade away from your fingers. And so I am keeping it flat and then putting the knife straight down into it through the stem and around the backside. And let's see, there's a little slice. Okay, so we cut it right there. And I have that cut all the way open, and we just turn and, oh, look at that. Beautiful avocado. Woohoo, first try. Okay, so I'm going to get the pit out of here too, because the recipe calls for a half of an avocado, but I'm doubling it today, so I'm going to use the whole avocado. So how do you get that pit out of there? What I would not recommend is holding it in your hand and smacking the knife towards your hand. So lay the avocado flat and then pop the knife into the pit and spin, and it comes right out on the knife. Look at that. So we'll set that aside. And then I'm going to scoop out all of the nice green flesh into my food processor, because we're starting with a sauce. So traditional chimichurri has all of the herbs and seasonings ground up first, and then oil is added after that. But we don't want to do that. We want to, we're not adding oil. So I had to rethink how to do this. And so it has a sauce that we're making first. So I'm scooping all of the avocado out into the food processor. And then the sauce will have either red or white wine vinegar, and that is up to you. I like the white because it keeps the sauce green looking. When you add the red, it can kind of turn your sauce a little brown when you mix that red and green together, which is kind of an odd color combination. So, okay, so we have one whole avocado, and then that will go in the compost. And then we have 1/4 of a cup of white wine vinegar or red wine vinegar, up to you. I think traditionally it used red wine vinegar, but I've made it both ways. I like the white, so just as well. And then maybe 3 or 4 tablespoons of fresh squeezed lemon juice. You could use bottled lemon juice in a pinch, but I think fresh is always best. And just as a reminder, the best way to get the most juice out of your lime is to take it and roll it back and forth, pressing down on the counter before you cut it open. And then when you cut it open, you get a lot more juice out of it. So, okay. And you could even add some of that lime pulp to it too, to up the fiber content. That's great. All right. So I have in there already the avocado, the white wine vinegar, and the lime juice. So I'm just going to whirl that up and make it into a sauce. Okay. And then I'm adding 2 cups of parsley. So if you're making just one batch of it, it's 1 cup of parsley. Parsley is super healthy for you. So most people think of it as that garnish on the side of a plate, but it turns out parsley has a lot of really great benefits to it. So there's a lot of vitamin K, there's folate, there's vitamin C, there's iron. It has a huge amount of iron and beta carotene. So super good for you. So we're adding all that parsley, and you want to probably remove the tougher stems, but you could put in some of the more tender stems. That would be fine. And then we have cilantro, which I have 1 cup. So because I'm doubling the recipe, so if you're looking at the recipe that we have posted, it's going to call for half a cup, but I'm putting in a whole cup. And cilantro is one of those things that some people really don't like. So if you really don't like cilantro, you could leave it out, add another cup of parsley, or maybe change it up and try some basil, because that would be really good too. So, and then I have, the recipe calls for 3 or 4 cloves of garlic that are just roughly chopped. You don't have to mince it up. You have the food processor. It's going to do that for you. So, I'm doubling this, so it's about 7 cloves of garlic. And you can cut down on the garlic if you want to, if you don't want yours quite that garlicky. Parsley is one of those things that's really good for your breath, but then garlic's not, so I guess it's a wash. And then we have a teaspoon of dried oregano and a teaspoon of smoked paprika and a 1/4 of a teaspoon of iodized sea salt. You can leave the salt out. So if you are on a salt-free diet, that's perfectly fine. Leave it out. This is super flavorful even without it. But if you are using salt, remember to use iodized sea salt, because we need iodine. It's an essential mineral in our diets. So now, right here is where you get to make a decision. If you would like your chimichurri to be really smooth and creamy, then whirl it up for a couple of minutes until it becomes just a real thick sauce, and that's perfectly fine. But if you want it to have more of the chunks of, whole leaves still left in it, just pulse it a little bit. So if I get the lid on, there it goes. All right, so I like mine to have some texture to it and not just be completely pureed. So I'm just going to pulse it a little bit. Okay. We'll scrape it down and take a look. Oh my goodness, that looks so good. Okay, I think I'll give that one more whirl. And then if it seems too thick, you could add a little bit of water. That would be fine. It doesn't need much. Just loosen it up a little bit. Okay, we'll try pulsing that a little bit more. Okay. Oh, that looks pretty good. That smoked paprika is giving it a bit of a hue, but it still is mostly a nice green color. So, and then it still has some chunks in it. It's not completely pureed. So that looks really good. Now, in Argentina, when they serve chimichurri, it's typically served with steak. So we're not doing that. So what I'm going to serve it with tonight is cauliflower steaks. You could also serve it on tofu steaks, some grilled tofu steaks. That would be really, really good. Another thing that it tastes really good on is roasted potatoes, those little fingerling potatoes. Get them just completely roasted and tender, and then top it with some chimichurri sauce. And you can use, I have a couple different examples here. You can use flat leaf parsley. You could use curly parsley. So this is a curly parsley from my garden. And this is a flat leaf parsley. So it doesn't matter really if you use curly or or flat. That's fine. And then cilantro looks very similar, doesn't it? So, and they are related, but the flavor it's a very different flavor profile. So like I said, leave out the cilantro if you don't like it, add more parsley, or maybe try basil, because I think that would be really good too. Also with the oregano, if you have fresh, that would be great. And you would add 1 or 2 tablespoons of that. And mine all froze last night because we had a little freeze here last night. So we don't have any oregano in the garden right now, but I use dried and that's fine too. So, and you'll want to let it sit for a little bit for those flavors to marry. And then put it on some nice roasted vegetables, a good cauliflower steak or a tofu steak, up to you. And as Dilip said earlier before we go to Q&A, I know we're all thinking about the people of Ukraine and our hearts are with them today. And I find it interesting that the colors of the Ukrainian flag are blue and yellow, and blue and yellow, when you combine it, makes green. So we're all about green foods today. So kind of fitting. But anyway, so we're going to have Q&A. So if you have questions, go ahead and type them in. And the more you type your questions in or even comments, every time you do that, you're entered in our drawing. We have a couple of different drawings today for some giveaways. So go ahead and type in some questions, type in some comments, and we will talk to you in Q&A.
All right, great. Let me bring everybody into Q&A. So thanks, Carolyn, for a very nice presentation. Let me bring Karen in. There's Karen. There's Angelita. Oops. There's Angelita. There's Mark. We'd recognize Mark anywhere with your hat. And by the way, just to be sure, let me see how to do this. Let me get our names going. Oops. I'll do that in a second. I'll figure that out. So there's Mark, and there's Susanna, there's Cody and Tammy, and there's Stacy. So another great show. Thanks, everybody. And it looks like we're having a video problem with Cody and Tammy. So if that doesn't get resolved, hopefully we can still hear you. Can you guys say something?
Hello, can you hear us?
Hello.
Yep, great, good. Okay. So, Karen, you're here. So would you, as questions start coming in, let's start with Karen talking about what she made. So let's see your pancake.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to show the finished product. And it, aside from the ones I ate, it did make 2 dozen. And really fast on the gas stove. This burner that I have on my cutting board is not very good.
That's beautiful. All right, so Karen is going to be taking names. So as comments come in, already comments are coming in. So, so Karen, please write down Bonnie's name. So Bonnie's asking, would the sauce go well with baked sweet potatoes? And that's a question for Carolyn.
Say it again.
Baked sweet potatoes.
Would the sauce go well with sweet potatoes?
Oh, I think it would. I think that would be really good because the sweetness of the sweet potato would kind of play well with how tangy and flavorful the chimichurri is. I mean, it is really flavorful. So, but I think the sweetness of the sweet potato would be a nice balance. Yeah, I would do it.
Susan has a question. I'm sorry, Susan, that you had some problems with getting the recipe link. I think Cody helped you, so hopefully you got it. Feel free to email us if you still didn't get it. We'll be glad to send it to you. Email any of us. So Susan has the question, do you have any recipes for cheeses that can be sliced? That's a great question. So many of us are comfortable. I taught, and in a few minutes we'll talk about what is Food for Life. So I taught the Food for Life diabetes curriculum yesterday, and we had a vegan cheese, and it was a cheese sauce. So many of us have made that on the show and elsewhere. But does anybody want to talk about sliceable cheese, vegan cheese? Karen, if anybody would know a lot about that, I would think.
You can, you can make it with cashews. You can make it with potato. You can make it with garbanzo bean flour. If you use garbanzo bean flour, you don't need anything like agar. You know, if you're using cashews or potatoes, you can use agar or Irish moss to thicken it up. But yeah, if you use garbanzo beans, you can put the nutritional yeast and a little water, lemon, salt, and whatever flavors you like, garlic or anything or nothing, and just stir it over the heat. And the more you stir it, the thicker it gets.
Tapioca can help too. Does anybody have experience? I think Tammy, you might have experience with. There's some books, like for example, Mayoko Shinner has a book about vegan cheeses or vegan dairy. I think it was you, Tammy. Maybe I'm wrong. Does anybody have experience with any such resources making hard cheeses?
A great cookbook on how to make your own, vegan cheeses. And like was mentioned earlier, there's so many different ways, so many different flavors that you can make it. You can make it nut-based or you can make it non-nut based. And those are excellent. And Mark's holding one right. Yep, Mark's got one there too. They're awesome. I mean, try them all because there's always better to make it at home and be able to control your ingredients, make them more whole food based, whole food plant based, than having somebody else make it. And it's not that difficult.
There's a lot of questions coming in. So Mary Cooper, where do I find the recipe link? And I'm sorry for not sharing that. Let me do it again. So bit.ly/so many green foods recipes. It's by capitalized. I'll share it there. A question came in from Geeta Sridhar. How do I get information about the diabetes class? So maybe this is a good time. Stacy, could you tell us what is the Food for Life program? And Stacy has a special guest with her.
Well, yeah, Colin's actually not coming on. So, but the Food for Life program is a program to run and provides the physicians committee for responsible medicine.
Stacy, your audio is a little bit shaky.
Can you hear me?
That's better.
Is that a little better?
Yeah.
Okay. The Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine has Food for Life instructors, and we are all instructors trying to help people eat a more plant-forward way of eating. And there are classes to help reverse and prevent diabetes, and all of the classes are conducive to helping to reduce our number one killer, which is cardiovascular disease. We also have classes for hormone balancing and cancer and reducing your weight and just kickstarting your health. So there's so many ways to get healthy on a whole food plant-based way of eating, and that is what we teach. And because really that diet is actually, and that way of eating is what helps to prevent all of these chronic illnesses that we are plagued with on a daily basis. So you can find, I'm sure Dilip can put the link in the chat, but you can find all of the classes that are being offered right now when you go to the Physicians Committee Food for Life page. And yeah, foodforlifeclasses.org, fflclasses.org. And you can find which classes are live and being taught right now. So a lot of us are doing virtual classes, and some of us are doing in-person classes as well. So make sure you know which one is which and get yourself into some classes because this can be totally life-changing for you.
And before, one more question for you, Stacy, and that's about the zoodles. But before you answer that, I think it was Geeta who asked about my class. So we all teach classes, and my class is an in-person class. Maybe in a minute, Carolyn will hit some of her in-person classes. I know she has something to share. Some of us, I think maybe Mark, are teaching virtual classes. So the best thing is, just like Stacy said, if you go to fflclasses.org, you'll find out. I'd love to have you in my diabetes class. I have delightful students. They seem to be really enjoying themselves. I'm enjoying them. So if you come to North Carolina, my class. Next class is Friday. You'd be most welcome to be a guest in my class. But Stacy, going back to you, first of all, I wanted to say thanks, Stacy, for recommending that one of our giveaways today be a spiralizer when we saw that that's what you're going to be working on. And so can you take sorry about that. Can you, the question is, can you use zoodles for a raw recipe versus cooking it? That was a question from Patricia Campana.
100%, yeah. You can eat raw, you can eat the zucchini raw. You can even eat sweet potato raw. Some people do that. You can spiralize so many things other than just a zucchini. But yeah, most of the vegetables can be eaten raw. I just showed a very quick way to cook it so that for people who are not really used to eating a lot of raw vegetables, they can get used to they can get used to eating al dente vegetables instead. But you could absolutely do raw zoodles and raw vegetables. You can spiralize beets and daikon radishes, which are quite spicy. But you can spiralize potatoes. Of course, you would want to cook the potatoes a little bit, but absolutely you can use zucchini noodles raw for sure.
Okay, great. There's a bunch of questions coming in, but I have a few that I want to make sure we cover. So, Mark, there was an important question that came in, and I answered, but I'd love your input about broccoli. When you go to the store, there's different kinds of broccoli. There's broccoli rabe, broccolini, sometimes called baby broccoli, and I have my opinions, but I'd like to hear what your opinions are on different kinds of broccoli from a shopping point of view, a taste, culinary, and and a nutrition point of view.
Yeah, so I guess broccoli is the kind of the classic big thick florets and stalks that we see, and that's what I used in the recipe that I did today. It's probably the most common and available, pretty much grown, all over the world, or shipped to you all over the world. Probably the more difficult ones to find would be broccoli rabe or rapini. It's kind of interchanged name, and that's a little bit more bitter. Some, broccoli will have a more fresh, sweeter taste. Broccoli rabe or rapini will have a little bit more of a bitter taste, a little bit slender profile to the stalk itself. And then a more recent cultivar where there's actually the hybrid of taking broccoli and Chinese broccoli. It's called broccolini, which is actually it's said that it's more related, I guess, based on its cultivar and what is placed in the species list and ranking and everything to a turnip. So again, a little bit different flavor. So it's really if you like things, I think if I'm going to cook with like a rabe or rapini, I'd probably use heavy seasoning. I mean, I'm even thinking like that chimichurri sauce might even be nice to sprinkle over it because you've got such intense flavors that might really hide some of the more stringent or bitter taste from broccoli, rabe or rapini. My first experience with rabe or rapini was in an Italian dish. My wife's family, a part of it by marriage, is Italian, and that was always kind of a special dish. Was that broccoli rabe or rapini, and had that with pasta and garlic, and of course Parmesan cheese and butter and all that kind of stuff. But we don't use any of that anymore. So it's really a preference. You can't go wrong by eating green food. You can't go wrong by eating anything on that power plate behind me there. The more colorful, the more, the better and the more nutritious. And that's really what we follow. People ask, well, what do you eat when you're on this diet? Eat stuff off that power plate. We just happen to be focusing on vegetables today, and the green vegetables.
Great, and I wanted to mention that in the Food for Live Diabetes series, we do make, there's another sweet kiddo, Angelina. So in the diabetes class, we make up a vegan Parmesan. Hi, we loved your mom's presentation. And the vegan Parmesan we make keeps for a long time. And just in class yesterday, my students were talking about how much they loved it, and I got some of the leftovers, and we're still using it because it's shelf stable. Here's a question for Karen from Ernest. So it's good to see you again, Ernest. Can I use the pancake batter in the waffle iron so I have more holes for the vegan sour cream or yogurt? Vegan, of course.
Absolutely, that's a great idea. Yes.
And then Susan had a nice comment that she buys rapini, broccoli rabe, life, every week at the farmer's market. And Geeta, I sent you my email. If you are in this area, then feel free to email me, and I'd love to have you in my class on my next class is Friday. Let's see. I had a question here for Angelita, and that's about roasting peppers. I also love roasting peppers. I've never roasted hot peppers. I roast bell peppers. And the thing I do differently than you is I put my pepper in a brown bag and I crinkle the bag up, and the paper, I think, kind of helps. So I never thought about using a plastic bag. So my question for you is can you talk about roasting peppers? If it's a hot pepper, would you risk getting, hurting, the vapors hurting your eyes? And is there a benefit of plastic over paper?
With the, okay, so when you put the roasted peppers in the bag, you're going to let them sit there at least 20 to 30 minutes so they'll cool down completely. So when you open it, you won't have that steam in your eyes. I like the plastic bag because it keeps the condensation in there, which allows that skin to come off a lot faster versus the paper bag, which will absorb some of that steam, and it, to me, makes it just a little bit harder to take that very thin skin off of there.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, roasting peppers is really fun. It really brings out the flavors of the food. Carolyn, you asked me, you said you had something special to say about an upcoming class.
Oh, I have 3 upcoming in-person classes because our COVID numbers have come way down in Montgomery. So a week from today, I'm doing an in-person class, a Kickstart Your Health class at a wellness center here with the hospital, Jackson Hospital Wellness Center. And then March 29th, Tuesday the 29th, I'll be doing the How Foods Fight Diabetes class in person at the Bell Road YMCA. And Saturday, April 9th, I'll be doing a kids and parents cooking together cooking class on Saturday, April 9th, 11:30, also at the Bell Road Y. So lots of in-person classes coming up.
Yeah, and all of us are teaching classes. So I have a diabetes class. I have a teens class starting in like a week and a half, I think. And so that's really fun. I've adapted the children's class. I've kind of combined children's and adult class. So so here was a question from Sandy Miller. So Karen, please grab Sandy's name. I was curious about cooked versus raw greens. Is one better for us than the other? Cody, would you like to take that one?
Sure. So raw is a good option because when you start cooking things, it can kind of destroy some of the nutrients. But some things are maybe a little more easier to digest if you cook it a little bit as well. Some people actually need to cook the foods. So if you have somebody that's going under like chemotherapy, they have to have cooked foods. They can't eat the raw stuff as easily. So yeah, there's pros and cons to both, or I guess really no cons. It's all plant food, right? So, but yeah, when you cook things, you just want to kind of cook it only as long as you need it, because the longer you cook it, you're going to destroy those nutrients.
So yeah, I agree. And so one thing I recommend is Brenda Davis has an excellent book called Being Raw, and she talks about if you want to be raw, what you have to watch out for. And in terms of cooking things, Cody's absolutely right. You want to minimally cook, but there are some exceptions. Beans, for example, are an excellent exception. Beans are just so chock full of nutrition that I recommend to my students that they cook them to death. You don't want al dente beans. You want beans very well cooked to make it much easier to digest. And Cody, I wanted to say, Cody and Tammy, it was wonderful having you guys cook together. So Cody, you and I cooked together a few months ago, and I loved cooking with you. That was my favorite show, being able to work with somebody. It'd be so great to be in Angelita's kitchen, or Carolyn's, or Mark's, or Tammy's, and or Karen's, or Stacy's, or Susanna's, and of course yours. So what was, Tammy and Cody, what was your experience like cooking together? Did you have the same joy and fun that I did with you, Cody?
Oh yeah, it was so much fun. I really, there's nothing like cooking with somebody that understands how to cook this way, right, Tammy?
Yep, exactly. And it's just nice when you kind of have that camaraderie and things really flow well together and you're thinking the same things. And especially with the two of us being nurses as well, we could throw, that medical nursing knowledge and throw that up for our students and patients and class participants as well. So that always is so helpful to be, right in sync with each other. And I think we did rather well. We had so much fun.
Yeah, it definitely was.
It's great cooking together, and I hope we'll have a lot more opportunities for us to pair up, or maybe triple up, or maybe even better. It'd be nice for us all to be together and maybe have a big group cooking together. That'd be a great show if we could do that. Bob Klein has a question. What about Brussels sprouts as a green? Susanna, would you like to take that one? What about Brussels sprouts as a green?
Sure. I think, well, one of the reasons I think we did I know I did a Brussels sprout recipe. Was it maybe in December for Christmas? But
I
yeah,
think so.
Brussels sprouts are awesome. We always say superfoods, but again, they're high in antioxidants. They're a cruciferous vegetable like cabbage and broccoli. So definitely, I like them fried, a little bit of aminos or sauteed, and yeah, include Brussels sprouts often. They're really, really, really good for you. Lots of health benefits, high in fiber, similar to all the other green vegetables we've been presenting today.
So Karen, there's a question for you from Mary Cooper. What grains can you make flour from in a Vitamix? I wanted to try to make sorghum flour.
Yes, that will work. Just about any grain. I mean, I even do it with the oat groats, but, not the rolled oats. Vitamix will grind anything.
Right, and one thing that I commented on earlier is to eat this way, you don't need a Vitamix or Vitamixes start at like $300 or $400. They're really expensive, and we love them because we do a lot of cooking. But don't let that hold you back. You don't need a Vitamix to cook this way. There was a question from Nikki Miller. I froze some raw spinach, and someone said it only keeps a couple of months. I've had mine in the freezer for almost a year. Should I toss it? So, Stacy, would you take that one? About how long frozen?
I mean, that's a good question. I do teach my clients about food storage. Here's the deal. If the spinach actually looks okay, and if it's not like slimy or it's showing any like discoloration or freezer burn, then I would say it's okay, but you really do need to use your best instincts when it comes to smelling the food. If it's in question though, if you're like, I don't know, then I would probably toss it. But the freezer can really, preserve our food quite well. So, Philip, what do you think about that? I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I think after a while you can get freezer burn. So you want to put a good plastic bag where it's sealed, and then just test a little bit and see if it tastes good. If it doesn't taste good, then you may want to compost it.
Yeah.
There's a question that I'll make a quick response, but then I'll ask Mark. Mark's my seitan expert. Susan Lombardo in Florida asks, "What do you think about seitan for meat replacement?" And I'll do just a very quick answer because I think Mark knows more about this than I do. I love seitan. I don't think of it as a meat replacement. Foods I eat because I like what they taste like, by their own nature. But yes, for people who are still eating animals, I think seitan is a great choice because it's fibrous and maybe resembles it in a little way. But Mark, why don't you share your views on this?
Yeah, so seitan's is made from vital wheat gluten, and I think it's a very versatile product. I personally like seitan that is mixed with beans. So I make an andouille sausage, a Polish sausage, both with beans. So beans just gives it a little bit more texture, more nutrients, more fiber. Is it truly a whole food plant-based? Well, it is plant-based, right? Is it a whole food? Yeah, not technically a whole food, but I've made steaks with it. I've made actually when we go to Asheville, I've got the Asheville trip. I'll be doing ribs and some brisket, and they're both made with beans as well as seitan, or as vital wheat gluten. So I guess it's like how often do I eat it is probably another question you might have. Is probably like once a month, maybe. It's not a steady diet, but what I like about it and what I really try to talk to people about quite a bit is the textures of these foods, right? We want to especially as we're transitioning to a whole food plant-based diet, you want familiar textures. And one of the nice things about seitan is that it does provide a meaty, kind of chewy texture. That's why I love my Polish sausages and my andouille. It really, it tastes like, smells like. The spices are very common or similar. They're the same really to what you would use in a traditional Hindu or a traditional Polish style.
Quick question for Karen. Will the pancakes freeze well if I make a batch in advance? From Ernest Dunbar.
Absolutely. That's what I love to do, is just make a lot. It really doesn't take that much time, but then you keep a bag in your freezer and you just take out what you want when you need it, and it just takes a few minutes to warm up in the oven, or you could just place it on top of the stand pan on the burner, just real quick. Fast food.
We're going to have our drawing in a couple of minutes. Karen has been keeping a list of all who've asked. So I see Jill has a comment. So Jill, that doesn't count. You have to ask a question. But thanks for your comment. So let's see if you can come up with a question, and you can be in the running too for one of the prizes. Let's see if there's any other new questions. Patricia has a good question. Which hot peppers would you use for poblano? And so, Angelita, you want to take that one?
Well, her question is, which hot peppers would you use for the poblano recipe? Oh, you can use jalapenos, the bigger jalapenos. You can use the bigger serrano peppers as well. You can use habaneros. You can use a cherry pepper. Just any pepper that's a good bite size would work.
Can I take it?
Oh, go on, Stacey.
I just wanted to give you guys also a tip. For when I roast peppers, I used to use a plastic bag. But what I've been doing is just taking my glass Pyrex bowl, and I use that because I'll make like a big bowl of salsa, and I'll just take a big glass bowl and it has a plastic lid, and that does like the same effect as a plastic bag. So if you have a plastic bag, that really works, and it doesn't really hurt. So that's another tip.
I like that because I try to minimize plastic as well. If possible. Sandy Miller has a good question. Does blending the greens break down the fiber much? So, Carolyn, would you like to take that?
It's all still in there. So it's still there. It just got ground up a little bit. So it's doing some of the same work that your teeth would have to do. But, chopping it up a little more, it doesn't get rid of the fiber. It's all still in there. But blending it up just, takes some of the work out of what your mouth has to do. But, yeah, you don't lose fiber.
Just a quick comment about that. We made a smoothie in my diabetes class, and I was telling my students that there are very few people, Caldwell Esselstyn, Essie, who doesn't like the idea of blending, but most people in the plant-based world like smoothies because you can eat, consume so much more of these good foods. But what I tell my students, when you have a smoothie, sip it, don't drink it, don't chug it like a drink, right? So I was just drinking some tea, but if it were a smoothie, I would take my time. Patricia has a really good question about oil. You all seem to be against oils, even the healthy olive oil. However, you are using oil-filled nuts like zucchini. What is the difference? Carolyn, can you take that one?
So I kind of lost your sound there for a second. I heard oil.
Yeah. But... So you're against oils, even healthy olive oil, but yet you're using oil-filled nuts like tahini. What's the difference?
Okay. So oil in a big bottle is very processed, and it has stripped away, like Cody and Tammy were saying earlier, it has stripped away all of the fiber, most of those nutrients. So I used avocado, so it does have some fat in it. I use cashew nuts all the time, and they do have fat, but I'm not using cashew oil. I'm using the whole food. So with Physicians Committee, we really recommend eating a whole food plant-based diet. So an oil is not a whole food. An oil is a very refined processed food. And so when you make it into an oil, you are basically just concentrating all of that fat in one place without the nutrients, without the fiber. And it's the fiber that fills you up. So just 2.5 tablespoons of oil has 300 calories. But 2.5 tablespoons of avocado, not quite that much, because it has all that fiber and the nutrients still in there. And so oils or fats in the forms of whole foods are preferred to a very processed thing like oil.
What I tell my students is that we recommend 10% fat calories, and there's other credible people in the whole food plant-based world who go higher. but everybody does have a limit, whether it's 10 that we recommend, maybe it's 12 or 15, whatever that limit is. And what I tell my students is, do you like chocolate? Because I like chocolate. And so if we allocate this much fat we're going to eat, I'd rather reserve that for chocolate rather than olive oil. There have been studies like the Mediterranean diet studies that talked about how Mediterranean diet's healthy, but when they did further studies looking at their exercise and looking at the range of foods and taking similar studies without the oil, they had far better results. So olive oil, I would not say is healthy. So it's pure fat and there's no real nutrition. Nutrition is in the olives.
Right.
In a minute, I'm going to ask, actually, Stacy, if you wouldn't mind commenting in chat about a link to the spiralizer, because this came up from Judy May. So Judy asked this question, so please, if we could answer that. But while Stacy is typing up the link, Bernadette had a good question. In the pesto recipe, spinach was a substitute for some of the basil. What other greens would you suggest? So anybody on this one? I've used arugula. I love arugula pesto. Cody, weren't you and I talking about pesto recently? Didn't you make pesto with some other green, or really anybody?
I make it with carrot tops. I use arugula. I use, any kind of green, spinach and broccoli greens. I've used all microgreens. I throw microgreens in my pesto all the time. Really ups the nutritional value.
There was a good question from Jill. So thanks, Jill, for asking a question. Your comment was a good one, but now you have a question, so you're in the running. What would be the ratio of beans to wheat gluten for your seitan recipe, Mark?
Oh, so my good question, and good thing I just made my Polish sausage this past week. So it was about 3 3/4 cup of vital wheat gluten to 1.5 cups of beans. So about roughly 50-50. Yeah, and plus all the other spices and everything.
I wanted to ask Carolyn a little bit about avocado. I was going to ask about arugula, but I kind of mentioned that. So can you talk about choosing avocados? And can you also talk about, this comes up, avocado is one of the foods that, it's strictly botanically, it's a fruit. I treat it as a vegetable. But can you talk about how you choose avocados? And because sometimes the avocado looks great outside and you cut it open, it's all black inside.
Avocados are one of those surprise foods that you just don't know what you're getting most of the time. But I have a couple sitting right here. So, I always pull the stem part out and look inside where you just removed that little stem. And if it's a nice pale green, if it's still kind of white, then it's really not ripe yet. But if you pull it out and it has that nice little minty green color, it's probably just fine. But if you pull that out and it's really dark, it's brown or black inside, it's not going to be good when you cut it open. So that's one way to tell. I always buy them when they are still a lighter color than this. So this one is very dark green, and it just gently gives when you push it with your finger. So you don't want it to be super mushy, because then it's not going to be good inside. But if it's as hard as a rock, just let it sit on the counter. If you're trying to get it to ripen up faster, you could put it in a sealed paper bag with maybe a really ripe banana, and that can actually help speed up the ripening process a little bit. But just being patient and leaving it on the counter is usually the best way to do it. Once they get to the point that they gently give to pressure, then put it in the refrigerator, and it will stop that ripening process, and you should be able to keep it a little bit longer. But I always go for the ones that are still really hard as rocks and much lighter green colored than this. As they ripen, they turn darker and darker. So I don't have an unripe one anymore. Mine all ripened on my counter. But yeah, these are perfect. They're just gently giving to pressure, kind of like a fresh peach. You wouldn't want it to be mushy, but a hard as a rock peach is also not quite as good as one that yields to gentle pressure. So yeah, just gently pushing a finger in and feeling if it gives just a little bit, probably ripe.
We will do the drawing in a minute. So I wanted to ask Karen to list and before we do that, I wanted to say, Mark, would you be willing, if anybody missed that long URL, could they email you at mark@somanycooks.com? Would you be willing to send that?
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, I've got some other recipes if people are interested that use seitan and beans, and real nice compromise. So yeah, please email me, mark@somanycooks.com.
Karen, can you tell me the list? And let's read off the list. And if anybody doesn't hear their name, you still have a chance to ask a question. So can you read the list of names you have?
Yeah, and I didn't get 2 of the last names, so if you are the winner, just email me your first and last name. I have Bonnie, Susan Lombardo, Mary Cooper, Geetha, is it Sridha, either R or N, Patricia Campana, Ernest Dunbar, Sandy Miller, Bob Kleiner, or Klein, Mary Cooper, Nancy Miller, Jill Ducoux, and Bernadette. I didn't get the last name.
And Judy May asked a question.
Thank you.
Got that.
And then I'll answer. Please add Millie Morales to the list. She's just asked a question, and I'll answer that. Any questions on how to store avocados? So avocados are reasonably high in fat. And I recommend if you're eating avocado, eat maybe a third of an avocado or half. Don't eat the whole avocado. But what I do is I store it with the pit. The pit keeps it from oxidizing, and I also put some acid around it, maybe a little bit of lemon juice or tangerine juice. I always have tangerines or oranges, and then put it in an airtight container. That's a good way to store.
I have actually found the best way ever to keep avocado is beeswax wraps. You can buy beeswax. It's instead of using plastic wrap, it actually seals it even better. And if you wrap it really tightly with beeswax wrap, it works. They make them. Trying to remember the name of the company that's trying to do away with the use of plastic. So it's a wax wrap.
And one thing I would say about that is, in our house we try to not use any animal products, so we wouldn't use beeswax.
Yeah, I think it's actually like leftover. So if you go to the website and look, I can't remember the name of it, Etee. It's like etee.com, I think. I'm not quite sure, but it's a repurposed use of wax. So.
And thanks to Stacy for listing the link to the spiralizer. It's a long link. And so, Stacy, are you okay if people contact you at Stacy with an E at somanycooks.com, and then you can send the link to them?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sorry if I'm echoing. Am I echoing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me mute your Let me mute. Try it again.
Please do.
Okay.
It's still echoing. You can also store avocados in a ball jar with water.
Oh, wow. And the water keeps oxygen out. So wouldn't you get the avocado deteriorating? Or
No, it doesn't.
So Susan asked, is this live being videoed? I'd love to hear it again. After I ask my question about seitan, which I make, the question is if it's really healthy. So I think, Mark, can you summarize your answer to that one?
I'm sorry, say that.
Is seitan healthy?
Is seitan healthy? I don't see why it's not healthy.
Sodium.
I mean, but basically what it is they take wheat flour and extract all the gluten out of it. So if you're gluten intolerant, you can't eat it. But I mean, it's not unhealthy. But does it have all the fiber and all the nutrients of all these beautiful things on our power plate? No. That's why I add the legumes, the beans back in. And onions that go in with those recipes and other of our high fiber whole food plants.
Yeah, Susan's asking about the high gluten. And so anytime you process, you have to question. And so my suggestion, I love seitan, but it is a processed food, minimally processed.
Minimally.
You can make it from scratch. And the biggest downfall is really the sodium. If you make it from scratch, you can control that. Should you favor more whole foods over seitan? Yeah, but if you're eating seitan a couple times a month, it's probably fine. And just as a quick comment too, is we never give one-on-one advice. You should eat this because you need to talk to a healthcare provider or a dietitian, but we're giving you general trends. we'll try to wrap up soon. We've been keeping, Jill's made it from scratch. I have as well. And then Susan says, add more goodies into the seitan, right? That's good.
Right.
So we'll give you guys another minute or so for any final questions. But while we're doing that, Cody, would you actually, before Cody goes, our next show, and it was a request from our studio audience. Anybody who has requests for shows, the next show is going to be on appliances. And Susanna, would you like to talk about that show? What that'll be about?
Well, so each of us are going to highlight a favorite appliance in our kitchen that we use. I know I'm going to be talking about food dehydrators because that's, probably an appliance that's not as many people have, but I really like it. I have two, and I find that it is just a very valuable asset to some of the things that I make. But I know we're going to use blenders and food processors and a lot of other different appliances. So it's going to be a really interesting show.
That'll be a fun show. Cody, we've been talking a little bit about Food for Life. If you're interested in becoming a Food for Life instructor, Physicians Committee does have trainings, and I don't know if the next one's been scheduled. So each of us is a Food for Life instructor, and I'm glad you guys all made it to our show. And look at this. So Jill, we have one in the Durham, where I live, Durham area, if anyone wants to borrow it. That's great. Yeah. Right, the appliances show will be really nice. Louise has a question. Louise Cohen-Silver. So Karen, please add her name. When will that be on appliances? I think it's going to be, does anybody have the date handy?
April 2nd, I think?
No, I don't think it's April 2nd.
Really?
I think it's the 9th.
Oh, I have April 2nd down.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Dylan,
it is the 2nd.
It says April 2nd.
Okay, let me confirm or deny. Let's take a look.
April 2nd.
It's in April. Is it the 2nd?
Yeah.
Maybe that's right.
2nd, yeah.
Yeah, it is the 2nd. Thank you. So April 2nd is so many appliances. Yeah, we all love kitchen gadgets and appliances. I've been trying to get Cody to get an air fryer, and I think I've convinced. Have I convinced you, Cody?
Yeah, definitely. As soon as our basement's done, we'll put it in our new kitchen down there. I'm so excited about it.
Yay. And Sandy's asking about dehydrating. The air fryer that I use, that I recommend, has a dehydrator as well. It's a wonderful device. Patricia is interested in becoming a Food for Life instructor. So go to fflclasses.org, and there's a procedure. I don't think it's been listed for the next training. All of us have gone through it, and it's a great team. I love being part of Physicians Committee. I love, having my peers who know so much about food. So I hope that you will apply, and good wishes to you about that. Bernadette, will the appliances show include the cookware that you use? Yeah, so we'll do that. I'm planning on talking about pressure cooking, and we're generalizing it. So it's not just an appliance; it could be a kitchen device, like what's it called?
I'm using a mandolin. Mine's a
mandolin, or I have this really nice can opener. So I'm also going to talk about that like for 30 seconds. I love my can opener. So yeah, that's coming up. Cody, can you take a minute and talk about the kids? So many kids in the kitchen.
Sure. So,
sorry, and I know you Tammy wants to say something about gluten. So after that, maybe Tammy can take the floor and talk about gluten.
Okay, sure. So, so many kids in the kitchen that, so Dilip and his daughter Anu from North Carolina are involved, and Ella and her two kids, Mia and Max, are a part of it. And then myself and my three daughters, Ava, Ella, and Nora, are all, the kids do the Food for Life classes. Well, the kids shows, and some of them do some recipes from PCRM, but a lot of it are their very own recipes that they come up with. And we do about every other month, and sometimes we have a special guest on, and the kids interview the special guest. Like we've had Brenda Davis on before, and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, and then our next one will be in April. I think we're still trying to determine the date on that. Is that right, Dilip?
No, we have a date. We don't have a topic yet.
Okay. So, and then
your oldest had a great idea, which we were talking about.
yeah. So, all right, Tammy, you want to talk about gluten?
Yeah. So, with a lot of these, foods like seitan and Mark, I'm sure you could probably speak more on this too. But Over the past, I would say 10 years, there has been an explosion of gluten-free everything on the market. I mean, you can't go to a restaurant, without seeing a lot of gluten-free stuff. Even more than plant-based, they have gluten-free menus and gluten-free this and gluten-free that. But gluten is actually not the bad guy. It has been portrayed in the media, in the bloggers and people who aren't really based in the science. Gluten is beneficial for most people, unless if you have an underlying condition like celiac disease or you may be gluten intolerant. They've actually done studies where people who said, oh, no, I'm not eating gluten because they've heard somebody say something and saying that they're gluten intolerant when they're not actually gluten intolerant. So it's important to know that these foods like gluten are beneficial for the gut microbiome for most people. And unless if you have a condition, doctors like Dr. Will Bolsowitz and some other plant-based GI docs, they go ahead and, consume gluten. It's not something that, you should be eating tons of every day, but don't be afraid of it just because the market, the popular marketing and people might be saying, don't ever eat gluten. It's not true, and it's very beneficial. So think of if you can just go ahead and give it a try.
This has been a great show. There's so many questions. I think we probably need to wrap up. I wanted to ask Susanna about Savoy cabbage. I've bought it, but I would like to know more. I wanted to ask Karen more about arugula and about onion, but I think unless there's any viewer comments, I think it's probably time to do our drawing. And I wanted to thank Geeta. I had said, if you want to ask about the diabetes class, email me, and I already got your email. And unfortunately, you're not local. But again, I would say, and I'll email you a little later, but fflclasses.org, and you can see if there's any remote classes. And Geeta, I will actually send you some diabetes resources because I did read your note. Give me a couple hours for that. So you can reach any of us by using our first name. For example, Stacy, it would be with an E, Stacey at somanycooks.com. And Susan has asked, thank you all. Glad to hear Susanna will be talking more about dehydrators. I use Excalibur and Dillip, talking about pressure cooking next month. I love both appliances. So let's do the drawing. And the way we're going to do it is, Karen, read the names and tell me what number of folks we have in the drawing. How many people?
All right, Bonnie, Susan, Mary, Geeta, Patricia, Ernest, Sandy, Bob, Nikki, Jill, Bernadette, Judy, Millie, Louise. I think that's it. Is that 13?
All right, so I'm using random.org. It generates random numbers. I also teach math, and we won't do it now, but if you are interested, you can email me. It turns out it's very difficult to truly generate a random number, and if you're at all interested in some nerdy talk, let me know about that. The rest of you know that it's very difficult to generate a truly random number.
Sorry, it's 14.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a random number. So Karen has each of those names listed in order, okay? So I am going to, let's first do the $25 gift certificate to Vegan Essentials. I go back 15 years or so with Vegan Essentials. They're a great company. They're in Michigan, I think, and they sell all sorts of vegan products, and they send it anywhere. So your $25 gift certificate gets you some nice products. So I'm going to practice. I'm going to say generate a random number. This one won't count. And the other rule is that, let's assume the first one doesn't count, just get a number. Let's assume I draw 3, then the third person will win. But the next draw, if I generate 3 again, that person doesn't win both prizes. So I'm going to generate a random number from 1 to 14, but this doesn't count, and I got 5. So if this were the case, then the 5th name would have won the prize. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to draw again. So for the $25 Vegan Essentials gift certificate, and the winner is 2. Who's the second person?
Susan Lombardo.
Susan, congratulations. Yay. So Susan, please send a note to Karen at somanycooks.com. Let me actually bring that up here so everybody can see that. Let's see. Here we go. So before we hang up, before we finish, make sure she gets your note, because if we don't hear from you, we'll give it away again. So next minute or two, please send a note, and Karen, please confirm that you will have heard from. We don't want you to in public on Facebook or YouTube tell us your contact, but if you send it to Karen, she'll work with you. Okay, so before we do the next prize, the second prize, Stacy, could you take a moment and talk again about the spiralizer, because that's what we're giving away. I think it's the very one you held up. Can you hold it up again? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, Philip. You might need to click the other Stacy out.
Okay, I can do that.
I don't know.
I'll do
but
that.
I'm echoing.
Okay. Never knew you had a twin sister, Stacy.
Yeah, I know, right? I couldn't find it. Oh, you got it. Good. Okay, so let me grab it because it's just 2 seconds away.
Okay. Susan, did you get your email to Karen?
Okay, so what is really, really cool about this spiralizer is that you can switch out blades and you can have different sizes of noodles, okay? And you can even, there's a lot of different sizes, but there's also a blade that you can just make like flat strips almost, which is super cool. And it's so easy to use. I've had this spiralizer for 8 years. And even though it's plastic, it has held up for so long. And you basically put as you saw in my video, you put your vegetable here, you have your handle here, and it pushes and slides towards the blade, and then the vegetable comes out. And it's so cool. It's so fun and so easy, and it has little suction cups on the feet, and it's a little bit cumbersome, of course, but if you have a place to store it, this is way easier. But I also want to show you guys, if you're not in the market for that, for a spiralizer, but I know one lucky winner is going to win one, you can also get, and I didn't have this in time for the show, otherwise I would have shown it. I literally just got it delivered, like just now, and my toddler was unwrapping it during the show. This has a julienne slicer. So it looks like a vegetable peeler, but it actually has little teeth on it that will julienne, and you can do that with your hands. So something super fun, but I really do suggest getting the spiralizer if you haven't gotten one yet, because you can make spiralized vegetables out of so many different things. And it's so fun.
Great. So let's draw a number. I'm going to draw again. And Karen, are you ready?
No, can I ask you something? Or
Sure.
to ask Susan something? Okay, because it goes through my the So Many Cooks address, comes to me, it doesn't give me your email address. So you have to actually type it into the email.
So if you would please re-email Karen and say, I won the gift certificate and my email is blank. Okay, so let's draw again. The second winner of the spiralizer is 10. Who's number 10?
Jill.
Jill. And Jill's right here in Durham, North Carolina. That's awesome. So Jill, can you please send an email to Karen@somanycooks.com, and
for that,
yeah. So Jill, congratulations to Jill for winning the spiralizer. I have to say something about Jill, and I haven't told Cody, you, or Ella this, but Jill has written a new book about kids in the kitchen, and she wants us to look at it. And I'm going to get you guys copies of her vegan kids cooking in the kitchen. We'll take a look at it.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
That's great, Jill, that you won it. So, yay. So, Jill, please send your note to Karen@somanycooks.com. And with that, unless any other... sorry, Karen.
I need the mailing address on that one.
Yeah, that's right. So when you email Karen, please include your mailing address. Okay. So Jill, we'll need your mailing address. I think I have your mailing address, but send it to Karen. Who was the first winner? It was
Susan Lombardo.
Susan, we won't need your mailing address. We just need your email. So So very nice show. Thanks, everybody. Does any of the cooks in the kitchen have any final words of wisdom? No?
Nope.
Okay, so may we move towards a more peaceful world. Sometimes the news is very, very troubling, and I like to think that eating well is one way to set the stage for peace. That sounds very idealistic, and it probably is. But please continue to share any comments about shows you'd like to see and any questions you have. And there's a comment from Millie. The kids love using this paralyzer. Great. Thank you. Thanks, Geeta, for the comments, and you'll hear from me. So just a quick thing here, just make sure. Okay, so with that, we thank you for watching today. Follow us on So Many Cooks on Facebook. We're also on YouTube and on Twitter. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for watching us, and you can continue to watch this after the fact recorded, and our recipes will be there as well. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
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 So many cooks in the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.